Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Welcome to another episode of Haqiqatjou, where we discuss religion and politics, the two least controversial subjects. As always, I'm your host, Daniel Haqiqatjou, and we have another excellent episode for you today, covering a lot of important topics, some of them concerning Israel and the situation with Patrick Bet-David and Dan Bilzerian. We're also going to talk about some of the so-called American Muslim organizations that are basically supporting Israel and working with Israel. We're also going to react to a lot of interesting TikToks that I think you'll enjoy, related to a variety of topics like feminism, simping, the question of women's education. So a lot of topics that we're going to cover in a short amount of time. As always, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter. It's very important that you subscribe to the newsletter, because if for some reason YouTube decides to take us off their platform, we need a way to contact you to let you know where we're going to be publishing our videos. So the best way that we can get in touch with you is through the newsletter, through an email. So this is why we need you to sign up. You can find the sign up link to the newsletter in the description of this video. Please go ahead and, if you haven't already, sign up for that. So today we're going to start off with our main story, which is the explosive interview that Patrick Bet-David had with Dan Bilzerian. So if you don't know Patrick Bet-David, I've been on his program before, but he covers a wide variety of topics, mostly related to politics. And he has, for a long time, been interested in religion. He's a Christian himself, and he has advocated for a kind of alliance with Muslims, between Muslims and Christians. He thinks that a lot of society's values are going down the toilet. He thinks that there's a danger to the family with degeneracy, LGBT agenda, so forth. And he thinks that Christians and Muslims have a lot in common when it comes to preserving family values. Therefore, it makes sense for Muslims and Christians to ally together. This is what I talked to him about. We talked on the time that he invited me on his program last year, and many of you may have seen that. But now, what has really soured a lot of Muslim understanding and perception of Patrick Bet-David is his comments on Israel, how he has kind of sided with the Zionists, and he has made some very problematic statements against Palestinians. And a lot of Muslims are not happy about this. They're pushing back on this. Now, here comes Dan Bilzerian. If you don't know who Dan Bilzerian is, he made a reputation for himself living a very hedonistic lifestyle, very glamorous, high wealth, status symbol lifestyle, and he publicized it through social media and developed a massive following. You know, tens of millions of people follow Dan Bilzerian. So he's a multi-millionaire. And he also gives tips on, how to sleep with as many women as possible. So imagine this scenario. You have Patrick Bet-David coming to Dan Bilzerian's house to interview him about that lifestyle. Ask him, what's your biggest high? Like, what is the biggest high that you've experienced? Like, how do you feel when you're gambling? How does it feel when you have all these women? All of these types of comments. And then suddenly the conversation shifts. The conversation shifts, and Patrick asks him about some of his tweets where he's critical of Israel and the Israeli lobby working within the United States. And you can tell that Patrick is very uncomfortable with what Dan is saying. And he tries to manage the conversation, but he's not able to manage it because Dan is just going straight ahead. He's going straight ahead and making his points, and he's not backing down. And he's not accepting this type of there are two sides to the situation, apologetics that Patrick is trying to impose on him and impose on the conversation, impose on the audience. Dan Bilzerian is having none of that. And it becomes very clear that Patrick could not respond to the excellent points that Dan was making. So when that came out, this came out a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, I shared it. And I think that Muslims should support these types of statements. Why? Because it's the truth. We should support statements of truth. It's obvious that Muslims are not going to support everything that Dan Bilzerian is about, right? The gambling, womanizing, hedonism, etc. Even though he comments also in this interview that he likes Muslims, that he's interested in Islam, that he's actually started reading the Quran. He actually makes those kinds of statements about Islam. That being said, you know, obviously Muslims are not going to 100% back everything that he stands for, and vice versa. He's not going to back everything that Muslim stands for. That's fine. But can we not appreciate truth or those who speak the truth in certain situations? And that's the kind of nuanced position that I believe that Muslims should have. Unfortunately, we have Muslims that go to extremes, either one way or the other. I'll give you an example of what I mean. You have Dan, for example, making these statements, and some people might say, oh, you know, may Allah bless Dan Bilzerian and give him Jannatul Firdaus, right? So that is a very emotional reaction. You're happy about what Dan has said, supporting Palestine, criticizing the genociders, this genocidal state. So you're so happy, but you can't control your emotions. So you start making these comparisons between the truth teller, this celebrity, and the Sahaba, may Allah give you Jannatul Firdaus, etc., etc. Same thing happened with Kobe Bryant. Like, even though Kobe Bryant never came out and criticized Israel, anything close to what Dan Bilzerian said, but Kobe's a celebrity, and you had, when he passed away in that helicopter crash, you had some imams saying inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un for that, and then taking that cue, a lot of Muslims were saying, oh, may Allah give Kobe Bryant Jannatul Firdaus. This is something that violates Islamic values. You're not supposed, it's haram to actually pray for mercy after death of someone who died on kufr, who died on disbelief. You cannot make dua for them for mercy. And this is a very clear-cut principle in Islam based on the Quran and Sunnah. So, but out of this kind of exaggerated emotion. Now, it also cuts the other way. You know, it cuts the other way. If one of these celebrities says something critical of Muslims, then, oh, may he burn in hell, and he is this and he is that. The example that we saw recently is of Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate made some comments critical of immigration. And we did a whole episode evaluating those statements. And based on those statements, you had so many people, so many Muslims, unfortunately, online saying, you know, doing takfir of Andrew Tate. He's not a Muslim on the basis of his position on immigration. SubhanAllah. So this shows you the level of emotionality. There is no stability. There are no consistent principles. It's just on the basis of how you feel. You either praise someone with the highest praise and you make the highest dua for them that they should be in Jannatil Firdaus with the Shuhada and the Anbiya, or you basically curse them. You basically are invoking la'na upon them. What's in between those two positions? Is there nothing in between? And this is what we should consider. Like, we can support positive statements, and it's our duty, in fact, to support positive statements. What we're seeing now, like, and I'm going to play the clip of Patrick Bet-David so you can see what Dan says, and we can react to it. That's coming in a second, but I just want to frame the clip. I want to frame the clip because you have these celebrities who are now celebrities, wealthy businessmen, influencers, where they can no longer deny what is happening in Palestine. It affects the entire globe. It affects the entire globe, and it concerns every person on the globe, because this is the first genocide that's being recorded in 4K. We are seeing horrific images constantly. And that is very traumatic. That is very traumatic. And an example of this is 9/11. 9/11. If you were alive at that time, hopefully some of you are maybe a little bit older, you remember in 2001, 23 years ago, over 23 years ago, that was very traumatic, that one day. And it infected the entire globe, and it deeply affected American society. And you had a huge amount of anger and hatred directed towards Muslims based off of the trauma that was experienced with that attack. Now, who was actually responsible for 9/11? Who was kind of coordinating it? You'll have to go off of YouTube for answers to that question. And again, you can go to my Telegram, you can go to my Twitter, and I'm pretty open about it. Even though organizations like the ADL don't like it, the Zionist Jewish ADL has put that on the list of my crimes because of what I say about what actually happened on that eventful day. But the point is, like, look at the sociological reaction. Look at how the emotions from one day came out from Americans, and they spread that hate against Muslims. And it was a kind of this violent hate against Muslims, where they were willing to authorize the American public were behind an invasion of a Muslim country, Afghanistan, and then later Iraq, and then later others. It was based on the trauma of that one event. Now, similarly, do you think that 10 months, almost a year of seeing dead babies, like literal corpses, seeing their heads blown off, like literal beheaded babies, seeing that for 10 months, seeing women, hearing stories of pregnant women being hung and displayed by the IDF, seeing the news story, seeing images, seeing video of little babies, like hospital rooms, like a mother has delivered twin babies, and the IDF targets the hospital room and kills them, kills the mother, the newborn babies, and the grandmother and the medical staff, just murders them all, slaughters them. Every single day, news like this is coming out. That is traumatizing, even though these are people that the majority of the West has no biological relation to, is a different people, a different nation, a different religion, but there's a human response. And that becomes undeniable because you get traumatized. You get traumatized seeing all of this. People get angry. People get angry, and they want to do something. They want to make it stop. They want to make it stop. So when we see Dan Bilzerian speaking out in such forceful terms, he's not alone. You know, he just was in the right place at the right time to express those sentiments, to a very surprised Patrick Bet-David. But I can guarantee you there are many like Dan Bilzerian who they just haven't had the right opportunity, or they're right on the edge. They're right on the edge, and they're about to go over. And it seems like Israel is not aware of this, or is not cognizant of this, or is underestimating this. It seems like the Zionists are not, cognizant of this. The supporters of Israel in the West are not cognizant of what's actually happening. Why? Because there's been so much censorship. There's been so much censorship that has created a silencing effect. But that silencing effect is not powerful enough to hold the traumatized emotions that is bubbling under the surface, and it's waiting to come out. And it's going to come out in an explosive way. And it's shocking that they're not aware of this. And the more that they try to keep it repressed, keep it censored, keep it below the surface, the more that they do that, the more pressurized it becomes. The more pressurized, and the reaction is going to be that much exponentially more powerful. They're clueless about these dynamics. I don't know. Allah has made them blind to wake them up to see what they're doing. And that's the punishment for criminals. That's the punishment for those who are, violating the most basic laws of humanity, the basic laws of God, that they are senselessly slaughtering babies, children, little girls. And we've covered it for the past 10 months. So that's the context of this Dan Bilzerian clip. Now, I appreciate people are sending in super chats. Keep it coming. We're going to get to the super chats, inshallah. Let's see. We will look at some of these super chats, inshallah. Now, let me share the screen. Now, you guys got to tell me, how's the volume when I play the video? Okay, let's play it.
A different conversation with you. Recently, when I watch some of your tweets, I don't know if you've announced this or not. I don't know if you've joined AIPAC. I don't know if you are, if you are an advisor for them. Let me read some of these tweets. Muslims aren't the problem. The open borders and motherfuckers and the media attacking nationalism, pushing DEI, transgenderism, and destroying moral values are the problem. August 4th. If you don't put America first as a U.S. politician, you are committing treason. Supporting Israel is bad for America. Netanyahu is a convicted war criminal, and Israel is not our ally. We fought way too many wars for Israel, and we certainly don't need to give them any more money. July 25th. These idiots have ruined movies. Everything they put out is literally propaganda. And then all of a sudden, we got scripture here. For what shall it profit? For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Is this recent, comments you're making about Israel a recent thing, or have you always had these beliefs?
It's more recent. I didn't really realize what a problem it was until recently, and then...
So immediately he acknowledges that this is recent. It's not something that he's believed. Like, these kinds of critical comments are not something that he's had, in his mind for years and years. It's recent. So just like Dan is being woken up by what Israel is doing and the brazen nature of what it's doing, because not only it's committing this genocide, it's also denying it and saying that, no, we're the most moral army and the Palestinians had it coming to them. They're all terrorists. They're subhuman animals, as the General Gallant had famously said. And you have Netanyahu saying that, yeah, we're going to remember Amalek, invoking the Bible, genocidal passages of the Bible. They're doing, and then you're a convicted war criminal and you're saying, I don't care about the ICJ ruling. I don't care about the International Criminal Court. Do your worst. We don't care. So it's this level of audacity, brazenness, and that rubs people the wrong way. People who are neutral, or they don't even care. They're they're not following Middle East politics. You're going to rub them the wrong way, and you're going to make them angry. This is actually something interesting. When you online, you see like a video of two people fighting, like just a candid video. Someone is recording. It's like a fight that's breaking out at the airport or the mall. And the way that you perceive that fight, like imagine it's just a bigger guy beating down a smaller person. Okay, like just imagine a video like that. It's a bigger guy and he's beating and pummeling and punching a smaller guy. Your initial reaction is like, this is not a fair fight. This is unjust. This is cruel. Those are the types of reactions that you have. But then there's like a comment or a caption on the video, and it said, "Oh, the smaller guy insulted his mom," or the smaller guy, violated him in some way, the bigger guy. Then your perception changes. Then there's actually a physiological response. You get a hit of dopamine because you feel, okay, the bad guy is getting his just desserts. He's getting what he deserves. He's the bad guy. The big guy is just acting justly. He's punishing him for something unjust that he did. Or maybe the little guy, he harassed the bigger guy's wife or girlfriend. Oh, then it's justified. Give him a good one. You actually want more violence inflicted. So you can see how perceptions, even though you have no clue who these two people are that you're watching, you can have that type of reaction based on what the caption says. In a similar way, you see this big, giant power that's being funded by the US with billions of dollars being given for free state-of-the-art weapons to brutalize, to pummel, to wipe out a weaker population of defenseless people who don't have those kinds of weapons, and they're trapped and they're being pushed into refugee camps that are also being bombed. You are going to have, even if you have no connection to those two nations, you have no connection to those people, the injustice of it is so penetrating. The injustice of it is so poignant and powerful. It affects you in a very deep way. And this is, Dan is one example of this, and there are so many others. That's a recent thing.
Everybody was scared to say something about it. My brother told me, like, you know, you can't say anything about it. They'll kill you. Like, everybody basically said that I couldn't say anything about it. And actually,
isn't that interesting? He's being warned. Don't say anything about it. Don't say anything about this manifest injustice because you might be killed. They'll literally kill you. And this is not some nobody, you know, he's worth maybe $500 million. He's on his way to being a billionaire. But he is worried about being killed. For what? For saying that, yeah, maybe don't genocide Palestinians. Like, maybe it's wrong. Maybe Israel is in the wrong here. He's in danger of being killed just for something like that.
Now they're like literally like trying to like kick me off the board of my company because of those tweets. So like, I've definitely had a lot of like negative pushback, a lot of my Jewish friends, but I don't give a, you know, it's like one of those things where I know that it's the right thing. And the fact that everybody else is scared to say it makes me, you know, feel obligated to be vocal about it.
Why do you think it's the right thing?
Because I know that they're a parasite. Like, they provide the U.S. absolutely no value. They've done so many things that, you know, would constitute you know, an act of war against us. I mean, USS Liberty, Lebanon Affair, I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. But, you know, and I think they knew about 9/11. I think they had JFK assassinated. The first thing that he wanted to do, you know, right before he died was, you know, make AIPAC a foreign entity, and not allow them to have nukes. And then all of a sudden, the guy's dead. And Jack Ruby, who is Jack Rubenstein, you know, I mean, it's just like, and then you just, I don't know, man, I can't ignore all the that they've done. They sold their secrets. Netanyahu lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. We fought all these wars. My friends have died over there. Like, you know, and I just look at what they provided us with, and it's not nothing. It's like a negative, you know, it's not, even if they just didn't do jack, that would be, you know, bad, but they've actually done things to hurt us over and over and over again. So like this whole thing of they're our greatest allies, just complete bullshit. And, you know, we send them $100 billion, then they send AIPAC $100 million, and then they distribute it to our politicians, and every politician is a little AIPAC handler walking around and telling them what to say and how to vote. And it's
so this idea of AIPAC handler, AIPAC is the Israeli lobby, and they boast openly, publicly, that they will support pro-Israel politicians and make sure anyone who's critical of Israel never is allowed to get into Congress because they will fund the opposition. And they do this, and then they brag about it. They boast about it. So imagine, like, they're very open about buying elections and controlling the U.S. government in this way. So Dan is calling this out, and there was another congressman, Republican, Thomas Massie, who revealed in an interview with Tucker Carlson that every member of Congress has an AIPAC handler. someone who is going to give that politician talking points about Israel, make sure that politician votes for everything pro-Israel, any kind of bill or any kind of policy that comes across their desks in the Capitol. Make sure to sign it. Anything that's against Israel's interests, make sure that you veto it or you don't vote for it, rather. This is what the AIPAC handler does. The AIPAC handler also manages the social media. So you can see on Twitter, for example, all of these congressmen and congresswomen constantly tweeting in favor of Israel. And you see very similar tweets as if they're written by the same person, or it's coming from the same database of pro-Israel tweets. That's coming from the AIPAC handler, and Thomas Massey revealed that in the explosive interview with Tucker Carlson. That's what Dan is referring to.
Just like, look, I'll donate like $100,000 to politicians, you know, and they call me up like, hey, you need anything? Like every week. I don't need shit. I sit on my ass. I don't do anything. I don't care. I don't break any laws. I don't need any favors. Like I just gave it to them because I didn't want to see any more, Democrats in there. So, but that's 100,000. Like what does 100 million buy you? How many phone calls do those guys get?
See how easy it is to buy politicians, how easy it is to influence the U.S. government. He's only giving 100,000, and they're basically calling him they're calling him. He doesn't even have to call. They're calling him and asking, hey, Dan, anything that you need? It's like he's their boss now for just $100,000. Meanwhile, what about AIPAC? Pumping in 100 million, and that's just a drop in the bucket, because the actual influence is not just through AIPAC, but it's also through an entire Zionist network of businesses, media. That's the real financial incentive to be pro-Israel, is that all of these other businesses and industries and media, they're going to be supporting you. They're going to be on your side. You're going to have access. This is why, as he mentions, you go into Congress, you're pro-Israel, you come out a millionaire, multi-millionaire. That's not just through AIPAC. AIPAC is providing campaign funds, but what's going to enrich you personally as a congressman or a congresswoman? It's this network, these connections. And it's all legal, or it's right at the edge of being legal, or maybe it's illegal. Who cares? There's no one there to enforce it. The people who are enforcing it are just as corrupt as you. This is the U.S. government, and we're a rule-based order. We're the pinnacle of democracy, and it's about the people's voice. Like, this is all BS. This has been BS for generations, for decades, if not the entirety of the history of the United States. So the level of corruption, and then they point to like Muslim countries or countries in Africa or in Eastern Europe. Oh, these authoritarian governments and tyrannical governments, and they wag their finger. You need to respect democracy like we do in the West. But they're the most corrupt in the West. Except it's a corruption that's a little bit more sophisticated. Maybe you even can call it Talmudic, the kind of corruption that they have in the West, as opposed to the straightforward, the straightforward corruption that you can enjoy in some of these Muslim countries. The good old-fashioned corruption, where the good old days of just taking a bribe, that's not sophisticated enough for the West. You have to have all of these backdoor deals and contracts and access, and it's more sophisticated in the West.
And so like I just know how it works, and the system is broken. Like these people get into office and they don't have very much money, and they get out of office with tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not an accident, right?
Is that an Israel thing, or is that anybody? Because China's doing the same thing.
China doesn't have they don't have an AIPAC. Like Israel is the only one that has a lobby in the U.S. Giving these politicians money.
Okay, no.
Yeah, so this is a stupid point from Patrick. If China is giving this kind of these deals to politicians and stuffing their pockets, that's a huge scandal. And there have been examples of this. U.S. politicians that have been outed as having these kinds of business connections, especially with China. It becomes a huge scandal. Or look at the whole Russian, Russia is influencing our elections. Like the only reason that Trump won in 2016 and not Hillary Clinton was because Russia was influencing the election. Like it's a huge scandal. Whereas Israel is doing it like out in the open. They're bragging about it. Like there's no regulation of it. So how is this related? How is Patrick pretending to be dumb? Like he doesn't know how this works. So China, Russia, Iran, like any country, Mexico for that matter, they're not allowed to just openly buy off politicians.
Every country, the big ones all have lobbyists. They all have lobbying that they're doing.
Not in the U.S. They're registered as foreign entities.
Right. I mean, if you're talking about, are you going to the...
Yeah, so Dan is making precisely the correct point. When you register as a foreign entity, there are all kinds of regulations that you have to abide by. And if you violate that, then you're, forget about being able to even be in the country. But Israel is not registered under all of those. So they can violate any kind of policy that other countries are limited by or are beholden to. That's the difference.
Dual citizenship part with Israel, Israel.
That's another problem is a lot of our politicians have far more allegiance to Israel than they do the United States. I mean, that's a whole nother issue as well.
Do you know why they did the dual citizenship? Do you know the history behind why they did the dual citizenship?
What do you mean?
Like, so the whole concept of dual citizenship was because when Israel became a, country again, they didn't want the people from here who wanted to go back to Israel that didn't have a motivation to go if they were going to lose their citizenship here. So that was the reason why they did it. It was kind of like, okay, you're your own country. We kind of need some of you guys to move over there to help the country out. Yeah, but I'm not going to go. Why are you not going to go? Am I going to lose my citizenship here? But you are. I mean, we don't do that. Every other country, I don't want to lose my citizenship. Well, okay, how about if we do this? How about if we allow you, just Israel, to go back to your country, you won't lose your citizenship? That was the arrangement at the beginning why they...
Is Patrick just trying to prove that Israel is treated special and has these privileges that other countries don't have? Like, he's basically making Dan's point for him. Yeah, with Israelis, they get dual citizenship. No other country has that kind of privilege. So, like, what is he trying to prove? That's exactly what Dan is saying.
They did it that way.
No, look, I get it. I have 3 citizenships. You know what I mean? I think it's okay. I think
What's the third one? I know Armenia, but what's the...
St. Kitts.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't have an issue with dual citizenship. My issue is when somebody is holding a U.S. office and they are putting a foreign nation's interest before America's interest, and they are favoring that other country. And so that, to me, is treason. Like, when you are a U.S. government official, your motivation should be to do things in the best interest of the government that you are representing, not
100%.
Some other foreign country. And that's the problem.
Okay, so, but go through it. So what is the solution? Meaning, if Israel's the enemy...
I hate it when people do that. Like, you were denying that there's a problem just 2 seconds ago. Then I make a good point, or Dan makes a good point that you can't deny. Instead of acknowledging, oh, okay, you're right, I was wrong. He skips that step and goes, okay, well, what is the solution? To like basically put the onus back on Dan. Dan was able to show that, well, this is actually a problem. He put the onus back on Patrick. Patrick couldn't respond to that. So he shifts the onus back on Dan by saying, well, what is the solution? No, man. You missed the step. You missed the step of acknowledging that it is a problem. It is a problem to have the politicians of your country, the legislators of your country in Congress being beholden or having allegiance to another country and voting or making laws that benefit that other country instead of the country that you're supposed to be representing. That's the problem that Dan is putting there and defending. Patrick was skeptical at first. Now, instead of recognizing that, oh yeah, that is a huge problem. That is serious, because why even bother talking about politics? Like, why even bother talking about an election? And that's what Patrick does on his program, on his podcast, on Valuetainment. It's all about politics and the election. Is Trump going to win? Is Kamala going to win? Like, how can we look at the different demographics and how that they vote? Well, all of that is irrelevant. All of that is moot, because if the elections can be bought, or there can be this influence on the basis of the interests of a foreign country, it really doesn't matter what the election, who votes for whom, and what the results of elections are. It doesn't matter. So that point should be something very concerning and serious for Patrick, unless he just doesn't understand, like, what is the implications of that. And I doubt that he doesn't understand. I know that he understands it, but if you don't acknowledge that, it defeats your, like, the entire purpose of your podcasting and your online presence and talking about politics. Maybe you should just stop talking about politics. Talk about, like, I don't know, entertainment, movies, music. Like, maybe that's like the kind of affair that you should focus on, as opposed to politics, because this is the elephant in the room.
Then if let's just say you don't do anything and everybody in the Middle East unites to take out Israel, do you think the Middle East is better without Israel? And do you think the world's a safer place without Israel?
100%. It's not even close.
Okay, tell me why. Why do you think?
Give me an argument otherwise, please.
But
give me one argument why the world would be better off with Israel. Let's just start with that. One thing. Give me one thing.
Have you ever lived in the Middle East?
No.
I lived there for 10 and a half years. It's a very, it's not as like here. You can sit here, you can be an atheist, you can be an agnostic, I can be a Christian, he can be a Jew, he can be an LDS, Muslim, no problem. We can coexist here. You can do that in Israel. You can do that.
I mean, not really.
Wrong. You can't do that in Israel. Israel is a Jewish ethnostate. So Judaism is the religion of the state. In the U.S. and other Western countries, it's atheism. Atheism is the ideology of the state. You can't really establish any religion or prohibit the free exercise of any religion, technically. But in Israel, that's not the case. You do establish Judaism. And how do you do that? Well, you fund Jewish schools. You don't fund Christian schools. You don't. The Israeli government doesn't fund mosques or Muslim schools, madrasas. They fund yeshivas. They fund the Jewish schools. They will have official state holidays that are the Jewish holidays. They don't do that for other religions. Even Sabbath. On Saturdays, businesses have to be closed. It doesn't matter if you are Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, you have to have your businesses closed. And on, like in terms of funding, in terms of maintaining like kosher spaces according to Jewish law, on and on and on. That is not the same as the West in the US. And a lot of Americans don't realize this because they just follow whatever the propaganda is that Israel puts out. That, oh, we're the only democracy in the Middle East. No, and Dan is about to make some points about that.
They're operating apartheid right now. Everybody's not living equally.
Not at the level of Iran. Not at the level of what Iran is doing. I mean, in Iran, if you're thinking what Israel is doing out of control, do you know how much money Khamenei's families made? Do you know how much money they've taken? They have 200.
I've never been to Iran, but I've been to Dubai. I've been to Saudi. Like I've been to UAE. So like, and they're all Muslim. They seem to be operating fine.
I would say Iran's slightly different than. But go back to it. So okay, so you.
Why do all of these Iranian expats, they have to like bring the same talking points? Like this is, I know because I have relatives and family members, Iranians living in the West. And they have the same talking points as Patrick on all of these issues, unfortunately. I don't know. Are they all on the same email list or why are they sharing the same talking points?
Think the Middle East and the world would be a better place if Israel didn't exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Israel's committed.
It's like, okay. His eyes are getting, okay. So you can tell that this is not what Patrick is expecting. And the dynamic here is, I think that Dan Bilzerian is a higher net worth than Patrick Bet-David. Dan has a bigger following on social media. He has a higher net worth. This is in Dan's house. So Patrick is coming to Dan to interview Dan. It's not like Dan is flying into PBD's studio. So that's the power dynamic. Patrick is, looking up to Dan And so he expects, like, the assumption that Patrick has is that if you want to advance and progress up the ladder and you want to get to the level of a billionaire status, you have to toe the line. Like, you have to be tiptoe around this Israel issue. Make sure you don't criticize Israel, let alone Jews or Judaism. Be very diplomatic. Always mention how it's two sides. You know, the Palestinians are doing a lot of bad stuff too. That's how you advance your career. That's how you make sure you don't get canceled and lose the potential for tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. That's Patrick's assumption. So he is thrown off by what Dan is saying because it's so unexpected. It's basically shattering his understanding of how things work. How can this guy, does he not care? Does he not care about the money that he's going to lose? Does he not care about the potential to get deplatformed or debanked? He already said that he's worried about being thrown off the board of his own company. He's already mentioned that he's worried about getting killed. So I think this is a good wake-up call for Patrick. You know, Patrick, look at what Dan is doing. Look at the stand that he's taking for the truth, for speaking what is just. And you know it's true too, Patrick Bet David. You know it's true. But how can you look yourself in the mirror? And I think he said that earlier in the interview, in one of the earlier questions. Like, you can have all this wealth, you can have all the money, you can have all the women, you can have all the cars, you can have all the planes. But can you look at yourself in the morning in the mirror and not be ashamed at the fact that you can't speak the truth, that you lied? Meanwhile, there are children, women and children and innocent people getting wiped out, and you are not speaking out against that. In fact, you're speaking in favor of those who are committing those crimes. And it doesn't matter what kind of justifications you tell yourself to convince yourself that what you're doing is okay. Deep down, you know that it is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. So how can you look at yourself? How can you live with yourself? What is the value, the dollar amount of being able to live with yourself? And that's the question that Patrick has to ask. And Dan is telling him it, like, straight up. That's the subtext. That's the subtext of this entire interview. Like, why is Dan speaking the truth and Patrick is not?
In, you know, so many terrorist attacks. They're stealing land right now. They're operating apartheid. They're currently committing a genocide on Palestinians. Like, do you believe in the genocide they're committing?
I think they're fighting for themselves and they're defending themselves.
Do you think that's defense? Well, when 1,200 people died, and of which the 1,200 you've killed and admitted that you've killed a lot during, you know, your Hannibal direct.
I will tell you this. The part I question, where people who are Jewish can't stand when I say this, I don't know how you, Netanyahu, claim you have the best intelligence in the world, Mossad, and you didn't know that on October 7th they're attacking you.
They knew about it. They didn't. They wanted it to happen, so they had a reason to take that. Yeah, they wanted a reason to take the land.
I totally get it.
So notice how Patrick dodged the question because Dan made it pretty clear cut. Maybe he could have, like, pressed Patrick a little bit more, but he said, like, don't you think that there's a genocide happening? And Patrick just dodges that question. Now the question of, well, did Israel know it was going to happen or not? Allahu alam. But that's not as relevant as what is actually taking place, which is an ethnic cleansing. And even the International Criminal Court, or the International Court of Justice, has said this is plausibly considered a genocide. And that was months ago, that ruling. Now, when you have the Lancet, the top medical journal in the world, saying that over 186,000 Palestinians have been killed, either directly or indirectly, by Israeli aggression and the IDF. That's 2%, or not 2%, that's almost 10% of the Palestinian population in Gaza has been killed by Israel. That's at minimum, it's ethnic cleansing, but it's plausibly genocide, according to the highest court in the world, the Western court in the world, the ICJ, The Hague, basically. And then Patrick can't acknowledge that. So who's controlling him?
They killed their own citizens, and they claimed that all these people got raped. That was bullshit. claimed beheaded babies. That was bull. Everything that they said was a complete. Not only was it a lie, but they committed all those atrocities themselves to the Palestinians and been caught doing it. In fact, they just got caught gang raping Palestinians. You know, how many babies have they killed? All the things that they accuse the Palestinians of, or Hamas of, or whatever, they're guilty of 100-fold themselves.
So you
And they've been doing that. Like, October 7th wasn't the start of this. Like, the start of this was Nakba. They've done so many different.
disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, so
Look at Dan dropping facts. He's like, this October 7th is not the start. Look at the Nakba. So Dan is well read on the history, and he's dropping facts, and Patrick is caught, floundering. He's caught like he doesn't know how to respond. He has to just keep changing the subject. And whatever subject that he takes it to, Dan has a response ready for him. And I know for a fact that Dan didn't go into this interview prepared to talk about Israel-Palestine. He wasn't ready for that. It's just what Patrick brought up. So he's not like reading a script. He doesn't have like a fact sheet in front of him. This is all coming from his head. This is the level of research that people are doing because they want to know, like, well, what's going on? Like not everyone is like Dan. Let me be clear about that. Dan Bilzerian, I didn't know this about him, but he's clearly very sharp. He's clearly able to do research. He's in touch with some of these things that are very far from what you would consider to be his domain of expertise. So this is a surprise for Patrick. It's a surprise for the audience, and that's what makes it a lot more powerful. And his tens of millions were following him. They're watching this. The clips were posted that went viral. That's like waking up. So many people, countless people admire Dan. They want to be like him. They want to live like him. And he's, spitting these facts. So it's amazing. It's really amazing.
I mean, this is not like, it's not like October 7th is like, it's all of a sudden they just came over there unsolicited and just killed people. Like, they had been killing Palestinians for years and years, operating two sets of justice. It's like they have the justice for the Palestinians and the justice for the Israelis. And if you read the Talmud, like, if you're not Jewish, you're basically not a human. You're like, like cattle. If a Jew is killed by, somebody that's not Jewish, then it's the death penalty. If a Jew kills somebody that's not a Jew, then, you can't kill them. It's not the death penalty. Like, they literally like segregate in their Bibles.
They're very protective of themselves. I don't think anybody can debate that. I don't think it's a...
Well, it's not the problem isn't that
So Dan is mentioning apartheid, and he's mentioning Jewish supremacy that's taught within the Talmud, and Patrick glosses that or spins that as, they're protective of themselves. So but it's so transparently like a spin job that it makes Patrick look bad. I'm sorry. Like, you look terrible in this whole engagement. But also, I want to note that Dan is bringing up the Talmud. Very critical, very important, because the religious component is crucial. And it's not because I'm saying it, or Dan is saying it, or some anti-Semite somewhere else is saying it. That's what the Israeli officials, the prime minister, the generals, the heads of the IDF, the chief rabbis, they're the ones who are invoking the Talmud. They're the ones who are invoking the Bible and saying our actions to wipe out Gaza, to wipe out the West Bank, and to establish greater Israel. That's on the basis of the Bible. That's on the basis of the Talmud. This is what our religion teaches us, because those right-wing officials in Israel, and some even on the left, they understand themselves as a religious state. They understand themselves as a Jewish state. So of course the Talmud, of course the Torah is going to be critical and important in guiding our actions, and we're being guided by God. It is God who has put his stamp of approval on what we're doing to the Palestinians, wiping them out. This is God's mission. They're the ones who are invoking religion. They're the ones who are invoking these scriptures, these religious texts. And if we notice that and we comment, okay, well, let's see, what do these religious texts actually say? Let's open the Torah. Let's open the Bible. Let's open the Talmud and see what it says. Oh, wow. Look at this. Look at this passage. Look at that. Oh, you're an anti-Semite. You're anti-Semitic. How dare you? What? How? If you're the ones who are invoking religion and claiming that you're doing God's work, it behooves us to actually see what those texts say. And of course, we're going to use it to criticize you if that's going to sabotage your plans to commit more genocide, to kill more Palestinians. Yeah, of course, I'm going to bring up the Talmud. Yeah, of course, I'm going to bring up the Hebrew Bible. And by the way, this is what you're constantly doing to Muslims. This is what you're constantly doing to depict Muslims as terrorists, to depict Muslims as being these barbaric, misogynistic extremists. You're bringing up the Quran. You're bringing up Hadith. In many cases, misinterpreting the Quran or Hadith. But let's put that to the side. At least acknowledge that that's what you do. You bring religion into it when it comes to criticizing Iran or Iraq, or like Saddam Hussein, for example, or Osama bin Laden, for example, or Abu Bakr Baghdadi of ISIS, for example. You're bringing up the Quran. And you have your intellectuals, like someone like Graham Wood, for example, saying, yeah, ISIS is Islamic. Like ISIS is doing everything that ISIS does is on the basis of Quran and Hadith. Like this is Islam. Your experts are constantly doing that. And you promote it on like The Atlantic. Who owns The Atlantic, or who's the executive editor, or was at that time, of The Atlantic? Hardcore Zionist Jeffrey Goldberg. Hardcore Zionist is in charge of The Atlantic, published that viral article, ISIS is Islamic. And you had Graham Wood as the author putting all of this trash, all of this garbage, trying to say that the terrorism that ISIS commits, that's coming from pure Islam. That's their game. Their game is to tie in religion with military action and modern day politics. But if Muslims do it, no, that's not allowed. Don't call them Jews, call them Zionists. Don't talk about their religious beliefs. That's irrelevant. Yeah, it is relevant. It is very relevant. They make it relevant when they invoke God.
To protect themselves. The problem comes when you think that you're better than other people, and you think it's okay to lie to anybody that's not a Jew. You think it's okay to steal from people that are not a Jew. You have two sets of standards. The problem with that is it allows you to rationalize anything, right? And human beings are generally self-serving creatures. So if your fundamental religious belief system allows you to operate in such a way that you believe there isn't consequences to stealing from other people, killing other people, kids that are under 9 years old, like if you think those things are okay, then, how are you going to operate? Because to me, like my moral code keeps me on track.
I don't think
this is a lot of topics that we covered in the debate. So if you haven't watched the debate that I had with Andrew Mayer, he's a Jew, who was saying that, I misrepresent the Talmud, I'm taking things out of context. Go watch that debate. You don't have to watch the whole thing. You can watch just the 15-minute opening statement that I give. And then if you're further interested, you can see the open discussion with Andrew. But I bring these passages, exactly what Dan is talking about. Here is what the passage of the Talmud says, or some of the authoritative legal commentaries on the Talmud say, and this is how those religious texts are being implemented in Israel or outside of Israel, with horrific atrocities being committed. And these are not being committed by secular Jews. These are being committed by Jews who view themselves as acting in the name of God. And, I presented all that in that debate, and he had no response. The Jewish opponent, he had no response to any of that other than to say, there are rabbis who disagree. Okay, yeah, fine. There are rabbis who disagree with the idea that you can steal from non-Jews, or you can cheat non-Jews, you can exploit non-Jews. Yeah, there are some rabbis. You can find their statements where they disagree, but listen to what Dan says. Dan says that creates an ambiguity. It creates a gray zone. Like, one rabbi says you can do it, you can cheat and exploit, and another rabbi says you can't do it. So you're just going to go with whatever you feel like at the end of the day. You're going to feel justified. Well, there's no clear-cut answer. There's no clear-cut answer, therefore I'm going to do whatever I want. And that's what happens, unfortunately. That's why you get these kinds of atrocities. This is why you get war crimes. This is why you get exploitative behavior, and on and on. You don't have a clear-cut moral code that says, no, do not do this. Everyone has agreed, do not do this. For example, in Islam, there's no Muslim scholar that says, yeah, you can kill, like in peacetime, a Muslim can kill a non-Muslim and there's no consequence for that. There's no legal liability for that. There's no Muslim scholar who has that opinion or that position. There's no Muslim scholar that says, yeah, if take a loan from a non-Muslim, you don't have to pay it back. You don't have to pay back that loan. There's no Muslim scholar who says that. There's no Muslim scholar that says you can indirectly kill a non-Muslim. You find that in Judaism. You find that in Judaism. And don't take my word for it. Read Israel Shahak. Israel Shahak, who is Israeli himself. I mean, he passed away, but he writes about this. Indirect killing is permissible. Indirect killing is permissible in Judaism. So if a Gentile falls into a well or falls into a pit, and you remove the ladder, so he can't come out and he's going to starve to death and die in that pit, that's allowed. That's perfectly permissible within Judaism because you're not directly killing him. A direct killing is like if you slit his throat or you shoot him. But just removing a ladder, well, maybe the ladder was just not meant to be there. It's indirect. Yeah, he'll die, but it's an indirect. It's not because you're killing him. He's dying of starvation. It's the starvation that's killing him, not you. That's the rabbinic logic. So read Israel Shahak if you want to learn more about Judaism in that way.
That's what it is. I don't think it's because you're saying it one-sided. You're not telling the other side of the story of what they're doing either. You're not saying what Hamas did. You're not saying what they did.
What did Hamas do?
I mean, from day one, when you see the rapes and the videos, we've all seen it. This isn't something
we've all seen it. The rapes and the videos, we've all seen it. Oh, really? You seen it, Patrick? I've seen it. Dan's seen it. We've all seen it. Look how they try to change reality. Like speaking in this way, like, yeah, we've all seen it, right? Like, what are you hallucinating, or are you just blatantly lying in a way that is so outrageous? That's how you change people's perceptions. If you repeat a lie enough times, then it becomes reality for a lot of people.
Rapes and videos.
But stay on this here if you want to continue with this.
But what rapes and videos?
But my concern.
So a lesser mind, okay, because I've already said that Dan is sharp. A lesser mind is going to be very suggestible, is going to be very influenced by someone making a strong statement like that, like Patrick is trying to do. Patrick is saying that we've all seen the videos, right? Like, that's a very strong suggestion. And someone who's weaker will say, yeah, but well, what is Israel? Israel is doing like, you see, like, you just accept it because he put it in such a strong way, and then you have to move on to another point. That's a more suggestible mind, like lower IQ. That's how you're influenced by what other people say and other people's emotions, and you just go with the flow. But people who have higher IQ or people who have a certain personality type, they don't go for that. They don't go for that. I'll give you another example, actually, from psychology. When you're talking with another person, see if you notice this. You can talk with a friend or talk to a family member or a classmate or a coworker. If you, while you're talking, like, there's periods where you have direct eye contact, and then other periods you'll look away. You'll look, or you'll like make a pointed look somewhere on the horizon or towards the door. You'll like look away. You'll break the eye contact. Does your friend break eye contact, or does he continue to look at your face? Or how about you? You can ask yourself the same question. When your friend that who's talking to you looks away, do you try to look away too wherever he's looking? Does your eye follow his eye, or do you keep looking at him while he's speaking to you? And this is something that they've determined, that people who are weaker and they're less intelligent, and they also, as a matter of fact, tend to be more liberal, they will just follow wherever your eyes go. So if you look, to the side while you're speaking, and then he looks to the side as well, like to where you're looking, he's like a weaker person, basically. Whereas those who maintain the eye contact and they keep looking at you, that is a stronger personality type. And they tend to be more conservative as well. So you may have noticed that. Next time you're in a conversation with someone, see if you have a tendency to look wherever that person looks. If that's the case, maybe try changing that. Or look at if the person that you're talking to, if he is looking, wherever you're looking, like, see, you can get cues about the personality type of the person that you're talking to based on the way that their eyes move. So this is a pro tip for you, some secrets of the trade that you can actually measure people that you interact with. And that information is very valuable that you have that they won't have about you necessarily. But that's just using eye contact. But when it comes to the flow of conversation, you can see that Patrick is making a very strong suggestion, and that Dan is saying, no, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to go with that. I didn't see any proof. You're saying we've all seen it. I haven't seen it. What are you talking about? So he has like that kind of, you want to call it alpha, you want to call it sigma, whatever terms you want to use for it. But clearly he has that.
When you're saying Israel's doing it, you're saying the other side isn't doing anything?
No, but I'm asking. There was no rapes during October 7th. They've shown no rapes from October 7th. They showed no beheaded babies. All that was all bullshit.
Just stuff. No, there's plenty of stories. It's not all of them.
There's plenty.
The Israeli articles that I saw recently said that there was only 2 babies killed. One was shot by a bullet, and the other one died in a hospital. There was no babies in ovens. There was no beheaded babies. All that was all bullshit.
The big. Okay, so go back to the.
And he's not just speaking, out of his pocket. That's actual fact. We presented on maybe 2 or 3 live streams ago, or we were reacting to the speech that Netanyahu gave in Congress. We brought all the articles, from the Intercept, from the Times, saying that there's no evidence. Like, there's actually no evidence. There's no witnesses. There's nothing to justify this claim that there are rapes, let alone mass rape. So this is just a hoax. This is a hoax, and it's being used to justify genocide against the Palestinians. So spreading that is also a being an accessory to a genocide. Dan is very direct. He's like, what evidence? I haven't seen these videos. And so what does Patrick do? He's beat again. He has to change the subject.
Part when you said they think they're better than you. You believe that Jews think they're better than everybody else.
It says it in their Bible.
Okay, but you believe they're better than everybody else. Okay.
I didn't say they're better than everybody else.
They think.
According to their scripture.
Okay, but what if...
And if you look at how they operate, right, like they literally caught people raping Palestinian prisoners, and there was riots. But the riots weren't because they were raping the prisoners. The riots were because they felt like they had the right to rape prisoners. That's why they almost had a war, because they felt like they had the right to rape these prisoners. They felt like that was okay because they weren't Jewish. So, when you have a society that operates like that, you're going to have problems, and they're not the most moral army. That's all, everything that they say, it's just like almost like, listen, when somebody lies to me, like if you lie to me, I'm not probably going to trust you again. You lie to me a second time, I'm definitely not going to trust you. You lie to me a third time, and I let you lie to me the third time, I'm the idiot. These motherfuckers have lied like 10,000 times. So like, I don't believe anything they say anymore.
I come from a place of, I don't sit here expecting you to tell me 100% the truth.
Come on, Patrick. Why are you doing this? You don't expect someone that you're talking to tell you 100% of the truth? Like, you just expect people just to lie to your face? Like, how can you be a successful businessman if that's the way that you operate? Like, Yeah, if you're going into is like with a stranger, you're talking to a complete stranger. Yeah, you don't know the person, but if it's your greatest ally, like the person that you consider your greatest ally, your closest associate, and you don't expect them to be 100% truthful to you, that's the claim that Israel is the greatest ally of the U.S. This is what you're saying because, oh, without Israel, Iran would be so bad, whatever that point was that you made. But you're claiming that they're the greatest ally. You expect your greatest ally to lie to you or not be 100% truthful? How does that make any sense?
I don't sit here thinking, yeah, Dan's going to tell me 100% the truth with whatever he has in his life. I don't expect that from you because I don't expect people to walk on water. That's not my expect. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to live it with my life, but
people aren't like Jesus. People aren't walking on water. They're not saints. You got to expect lies every now and then, like straight up lies into your face. Your family, your loved ones, your spouse, just lying to your face. Of course. No one's Jesus. Oh, please, Patrick, why? Why are you destroying your reputation? You've developed this reputation as a truth teller. That's why you rose in popularity, because you're willing to say the hard truths at risk to your wealth. When it came to COVID, for example, when it came to vaccines, you built your brand on truth telling. Arguably that's your biggest strength. Otherwise, you're just another guy who, is interviewing celebrities. So what? But why people come to you and trust you is because, Patrick was willing to put it all on the line to save lives, to save lives, to speak the truth. And he didn't care about the consequences. That's what your reputation is built on. You're setting a match to all of that. You're flushing all of that down the toilet when you make these ridiculous statements. And it looks really bad because the person that you happen to be interviewing is being extremely honest and extremely authentic. And when you're side by side with that person, you look that much worse. So this is a disaster for Patrick. And I don't know if he's learned his lesson.
You can't think that China's going to tell us the truth, or Iran tells us the truth, or US tells everybody the truth, or you think any country is going to tell us 100% the truth.
Yeah, but China, Iran, all of those countries are not considered the greatest ally of the United States. We're not giving billions of dollars, trillions actually of dollars to China or Iran. We are giving it to Israel. Can we at least get a little bit of honesty? Does trillions of dollars buy you any honesty from Israel? No. It actually gets you stabbed in the back over and over and over again, thousands of times.
But I don't know, man. I got a different moral code. Like in gambling,
it's not about
but in gambling and business, like with my friend group, like you lie one time, you welch on a debt, you do one
You're
thing.
Talking friendship, though.
I'm just saying, my friends, people that I know, people that I do business with, people I gamble with, like
it's the same thing I have as well. It's the same thing most people have. There's a difference between on the personal side than on the country.
Botox haram.
All right, that's when the clip. I mean, they continue talking, but we covered like the most important parts of that interview. So yeah, it's this came out of nowhere. It went super viral. You have Dan Bilzerian, who has tens of millions of followers, and it was surprising to me why Patrick posted this interview in full. And I found out through some sources that part of the reason, because I was defending Patrick, I was saying that even though he was shilling for Israel in this interview, at least he posted it. And that's worth something. So I was kind of like defending Patrick against those who were criticizing him. But then other sources said that, well, actually, Dan also was recording. Dan was also recording this interaction, this interview. So if Patrick hadn't published it in full, Dan had the full recording and he could have put it out and he could have said that, hey, Patrick, why didn't you publish it in full? Like, why did you selectively edit it? That would make it look 10 times worse. So I don't know how I can defend Patrick. Unfortunately, it really doesn't look too good. Doesn't look too good for you, Patrick. So It's a wake-up call. Like I said, it's a wake-up call. You need to really reconsider shilling for Israel. If you have handlers like that Adam goon, get rid of this dead weight. Get rid of these people that are not really out for you. Like, the only reason they're there is obviously to leech off of you, but also to make sure you don't go off the rails and say something that is against Israel's interests. Someone has to tell you the truth, Patrick. Someone has to say it straight up. And if you haven't realized it, now you know. So anything that you do, it's your own fault from now on. Or it has been, really, actually. So let's go to Super Chats. Oh, and before we go to Super Chats, actually, to continue this topic. So Dan actually retweeted me, or he quote tweeted, and it was quite a viral tweet. Okay, so you couldn't hear me, right? Let me see why that is. Okay, now can you hear me? Sorry about that. Okay, as I was saying, I made this list of the top 20 most shocking moral teachings of the Talmud with proof. So the way that this thread, it's like a super thread, and it went viral, almost 4 million. The Turkish translation of this thread reached over 5 million people, Turkish speakers. And when you realize that Turkey only has about 85 million people, and most Turkish speakers live in Turkey, that's a big percentage of the Turkish population have read this thread in their own language. But the point is that I screenshot the quote, the problematic quote from the Talmud, from Safaria, the most authoritative source for translation of the Talmud and other religious scripture. And then I give an example of how that teaching has been implemented within Israel or in other parts of the world. So it becomes impossible to deny. And I also cite statements from rabbis who are saying, yeah, this is what we believe and this is what we're going to implement. So this thread went super viral. And then Dan, part of the reason that went viral is that Dan is retweeting it. So, and he's saying that he had posted some quotes of the Talmud, and you had Jewish apologists say, oh no, these are inaccurate. And it's true, like what he posted is a meme that did have some inaccurate quotes, but in reality, not even the most shocking things are cited in that meme. So I, it made this thread to set the record straight. What does the Talmud actually say? And the proof is there in black and white, the screenshots that no one can deny. So yeah, this is the interaction with Dan Bilzerian here on Twitter. He tweeted it and it reached 2.3 million people. So yeah, that's that's why this is good. Like, this is good to have people at that level who, you know, everyone knows about the Quran. Everyone knows about, oh, kill them wherever you find them. Like this verse in Surah Tawbah that they just spam with their misinterpretation to portray Muslims as terrorists. To claim that, oh, Islam teaches, the Quran teaches Muslims to just kill non-Muslims wherever they are. This is a lie, obviously. This is a lie against Islam, and this is not what Islam has ever taught, that you should just kill non-Muslims wherever you find them for no reason. But people know about that verse. People have heard it because it's been spread in this way to demonize Muslims. But we're not trying to demonize Jews. We're not trying to demonize them. In fact, I make a disclaimer in the thread itself that not all Jews believe in the Talmud. In fact, many Jews are critical of the Talmud. But why can't we just learn what the Talmud says? Why can't we learn what the rabbis are saying, past and present? It's important. We need to learn and understand. Okay. So now let's go to Super Chats. Let's see. Okay, BXZ, appreciate your super sticker. Assalamu alaikum, brother. May Allah grant you the greatest of all blessings. Appreciate your great work. Since Google is taking 30% cut, do you plan to provide means for donation via Streamlabs? Keep cooking those hypocrites. Fi aman Allah. I'm not sure how Streamlabs work. I'll look into it. But when you're donating on a super chat, the benefit of it is that the algorithm within YouTube will promote the video more. So there is a benefit to providing a super chat. If you don't want to provide that benefit, you can also donate directly to through MuslimSkeptic.com. We have a donation tab, so you can donate directly, and it's not going to be at 30%. I don't know if it's 30% on YouTube. If that's the case, that's, you know, but it's, you're supporting the channel, you're supporting the live stream by putting a super chat through YouTube itself. Free Palestine, thank you for your super chat. Says, thank you, Daniel, and your team for what you guys are doing. I hope you can make more frequent live streams and debates. Can't wait for Genius of Islam episode 4. Yeah, inshallah, that's coming very soon. The first draft has been completed. Now it's the second draft is being worked on of episode 4. And it's a long episode. It's longer than all the other previous episodes. So episode 4 is like a documentary, basically. So it's going to be worth the wait, inshallah. Brother Muhammad, thank you for your super chat. Another witness, appreciate your super chat, says, all these Christian preachers and laymen that backed Israel will go down in history with great infamy. We Muslims will never forget, neither will the world. This will be a huge blow to Christianity. I expect way more reversion of Christians becoming Muslims, inshallah. Thoughts on Nick Fuentes declaring war against the Trump campaign? He might go to Michigan to rally the anti-Israel vote against Trump. Well, I think that it's smart. You know, it's smart to do oppositional politics. If the party or the politicians within your side are not actually consistent in supporting your values, why should you keep supporting those politicians? It makes absolutely no sense. Muslims don't learn this lesson either. Many Muslims in the West, for example, in the UK or in the US, we're told by a lot of these imams bought and paid for imams, unfortunately, that you have to vote. And the implication is you have to vote for the left wing. You have to vote for the Democrats or Labor or whatever. But the left wing is not helping Muslims. The left wing is actually supporting genocide. The left wing is actually arming the genocidal state. The left wing is doing all kinds of things to restrict Muslims and attack the Muslim world. Look at what Obama did in droning Afghanistan, Western Pakistan, what Obama did in terms of Libya, invading Libya, killing countless Muslims. Every 20 minutes of the Obama administration over 8 years, a bomb, like on average, one bomb every 20 minutes is dropped on the Muslim world while Obama was in office. Nobel Prize laureate, by the way. He won the Peace Prize for this. I mean, for other things, but in spite of this. So why should we just vote one way, no matter what? Now, I'm not an advocate of voting. I think that the idea that there's going to be change in Washington based off of whether Kamala's in office or Trump, for the things that I care about and the things that most Muslims care about, it's like a marginal difference who is in office. And there are other reasons that you shouldn't vote. Obviously, there's other, many have argued that it's actually haram to vote, but we'll put that discussion aside. You can see previous episodes to get more information on that. So, but yeah, Nick Fuentes declaring war on the Trump campaign. It's interesting. One more thing, we Muslims need to document these Christians and preachers backing the killing. That way it won't allow them to deny or change the history. Do it, my brothers and sisters. Yeah, always good to collect receipts. Don't you think some of these Muslim Christian back and forth we see on social media is getting out of hand and ill-timed? Our alliance versus Zionists is way more important in my view. Love you, brother. I really appreciate your super chat, brother. I think there's always going to be debate. There's always going to be back and forth between Muslims and other groups. I think that there's not a problem with that. Are some things over the top? Are things like some things inflammatory unnecessarily? Yeah. Unfortunately, I think there are some more inflammatory things that are unnecessary. And there should be more of an effort towards non-aggression, especially those Christians who are criticizing Israel. But you're not going to be able to have, 100% no debate, no criticism. But a lot of these Christians are also Judeo-Christian. They love and support Israel. So, of course, we're going to debate them and debunk them, etc. Like and share, people. Appreciate the reminder. Possibly you'll be rewarded, inshallah. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to show some support to your channel with a super chat, an idea on a topic for the channel. Tucker Carlson did an interview discussing supernatural beings and how our leaders worship them. I haven't seen that interview, but it sounds interesting. Or I haven't seen that report, but maybe we'll do a reaction, inshallah, to Tucker Carlson. That sounds good. Okay. Let's continue the rest of the show. So we have some TikToks that I want to react to. And before we do that, there's a report that I think you should read, especially if you're a Muslim in the West. And let me bring that up. Hold on. So I've promoted this newsletter in the past. It's a newsletter run by Ahmed Sheikh, and he's basically, he's a lawyer, but he does some investigative reporting, accountability for these Muslim organizations. He's done a lot of reporting on organizations like Islamic Relief and how they misappropriate the donations that they get, the millions of dollars of donations that they get. He has reported on a lot of Muslim organizations that continue to ally with Zionists even during this genocide. So I highly recommend you go. It's on Substack, and you can see Working Towards Ihsan newsletter. Highly recommend that you subscribe to this and you read his material, especially if you want to give donations to organizations. He's criticized LaunchGood, for example. A lot of Muslims are giving money to LaunchGood. They also have unethical practices and misappropriate funds. But in this recent report, he talks about MGAGE. MGAGE, War Profiteering and False Testimony, MGAGE and Muslim Leadership. So MGAGE is this kind of political action group. They claim to represent Muslim Americans. Let's read what Ahmed says. MGAGE was founded and is currently controlled and funded largely by non-Muslims. This is reflected in the organization's apparent priorities. In a message from April of this year, MGAGE's CEO underscored his desire for Muslims and Arabs to get their fair share of Department of Defense contracts. Another MGAGE co-founder and chair bragged about providing the Department of Defense with equipment that can see through clouds. Indeed, MGAGE has evangelized war and oppression-related profits by taking advantage of a principal founder's position heading the Department of Defense's Office of Small Business Programs. Just last month, a board member organized a conference in Detroit aimed at attracting more people to the defense contracting sector. MGAGE has directly promoted this kind of work. So this is one of the founders on the right here. His name is Mitha. So here he is as well. Farouk Mitha. And the crazy thing is that he's not even Muslim. This is Ismaili. And do you guys know who Ismailis are, right? Ismailis are not Muslim. They believe in the Agha Khan. And they believe essentially that Agha Khan is like their god. And this is a person. He's like an old man. He's like an obese old man. And they don't pray, they don't fast, they don't do Hajj, because why? The Agha Khan says it's not required. So their Agha Khan is basically more important than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They view him as literally like more important than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Agha Khan makes their laws. If the Agha Khan says, you know, don't do this or don't do that, that's their religion. So they're not even Muslim. Even 12er Shia don't consider them Muslim. These are the Ismailis, and they've started this organization, MGAGE, and they collect donations, and they do these kinds of advocacy on behalf of the Department of Defense. So the article details like some of these requests that they put out from the Department of Defense. And MGAGE is so bad that the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations has actually withdrew or expelled them. So that's how bad they are. And U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations, I wouldn't necessarily consider them to be like so upright themselves. But MGAGE is so bad that they've been expelled from this U.S. Council. Why? Because they participate with the ADL, directly partnered with the ADL to weaponize, which weaponizes Islamophobia, lobbies to restrict the right to boycott for human rights, and regularly smears American Muslims who stand up for Palestine. They've also partnered with the American Jewish Committee, another rabid Zionist organization. And you can read this letter yourself. And MGAGE has been lobbying to get this letter taken down because it damages their reputation in the Muslim community, obviously. Let's see. What are the current members of this? Yeah, so like CARE, ICNA, MAS, Muslim Legal Fund, ICNA Relief, etc. So yeah, these organizations are good with a lot of deviance. They're good with a lot of trash, but Mgage is just over the line. Mgage is over the line, so they kicked them out. Who are their board members? Yeah, a bunch of CARE, ICNA people. MAS. Anywho, so this is Mgage. Then what was shocking also is you have like people who are still like, they claim to be upright members of the Muslim community, appealing for support and donations from the Muslim community, yet they work with Mgage. Mgage, that's been tarnished with these associations with Zionists, the worst, most rabid Zionist organizations. And then this was the shocking thing. You have emerging leaders training. Mgage Michigan. Oh, you have Rashida Tlaib. If you don't know Rashida Tlaib, she's the congresswoman who was asked about misogyny in Islam. And she says, well, according to me, Allah is a she, not a he. This is what Rashida has said. And when she's not, at a pride parade marching for LGBT, she's a theologian talking about the gender of Allah. Allah is a she. So then you have, Mufti Abdul Wahab Wahid of Miftah. If you don't know Miftah, this is like the new platform for all kinds of deviance in the Muslim community. They have conferences in all the Muslim major cities in the US, and they even go international. They do things in London. I believe they have done things in South Africa, maybe. I'm not sure about that. But they platform all of the usual suspects, the Dawah Mafia, the compassionate imams, outright reformists. They will platform. They themselves, look, I have my turban on, my nice turban, my long beard. I cite the Quran, I cite Hadith. But I'm co-paneling with Rashida Tlaib for Mgage, this Zionist organization. So the problem with Miftah is long. There are a lot of issues with them because, it's not just this connection to Mgage, sitting with Rashida Tlaib and co-speaking with a bunch of non-hijabi women that are supposed to be Muslims. They do a lot of gender mixing in their events. They do a lot, and they are aggressively gender mixing where they call out those who don't gender mix. And there's a viral clip of Yasser Qadi at a Miftah event talking a lot of nonsense. But I won't go into all those details. I won't bore you. We'll have a different episode one day, inshallah, on Miftah and their deception. But just wanted to point that out and encourage you to read this Working with Ihsan newsletter. I also called out Miftah specifically. Miftah is known for platforming the worst deviants while pretending to be a traditional Islamic learning platform. Meanwhile, their executive director, Mufti, sits on panels with non-hijabi deviants like Rashida, My Allah Zashi Tlaib. This event was for Mgage. Mgage is a pro-Israel, pro-US military organization led by an Ismaili. So, and then this Mufti actually responded. He said that, unfortunately, I was not aware of these things before I attended the event. I was later on advised by some of our colleagues and mashayikh about some of the realities that you shared and to be more careful in the future, and now accordingly have done so. Okay, it's all better now. He apologized. It was just an honest mistake. So I said, do you accept invitations without knowing what the organization is and who else you are speaking next to? The excuse is worse than the sin. So, and the thing is that they have been advised privately. I've advised them privately. Their mashayikh that they're referencing have advised them privately not to platform deviance, not to throw gender separation under the bus. And at your events that you're organizing, don't do that. Like, they've been advised plenty. They don't care. They don't take that advice. But, I guess M-Gage, that was something controversial enough because they're literally Zionists founded by Ismaili. And so then you publicly apologize for that. I'm pretty sure you won't do any more events with M-Gage. But everything else that you've been advised on, no action on that. No apology for that. Okay. And we're supposed to take this seriously? Like, this is, he's real. Such contrition. Such concern about doing the right thing. Mashallah. Yeah, you're not going to fool people who weren't born yesterday. Okay. So let's get into the TikToks. TikTok reaction. So if there's something that you want me to react to, feel free to put it on Twitter or put it on, the YouTube comments, and hopefully I'll see it. Someone will bring it to my attention. But these are the things that I'm reacting to this week, or this episode rather.
These may seem like...
So this is an imam. I don't actually know who the imam is, but he just has a TikTok channel and he says this is haram, this is halal. He's giving kind of fatwa, I guess. But CNN is reporting on this imam. He's in Germany. And they're portraying him as an extremist. But look at what they're saying.
Normal, lighthearted Q&As, but there's something that is concerning counterterrorism experts here.
So this is Salma Abdelaziz, reporting for CNN. So when they say, send your daughters to college so that they can make a difference and they can help the Muslim community. She's at CNN. She has a role reporting, investigating for CNN. Wow, that's really going to help the Muslim community. No, what these Muslim women are doing, they're going to CNN and then they're attacking the Muslim community. They're attacking our imams and portraying them as extremists. So I'm sure that Salma and Salma's parents were like, we're going to do so much for the Muslim community by encouraging our daughter to go study journalism and go and study media or communications. We're going to do so much for the ummah. And she comes out in CNN. CNN doesn't put like a white reporter, or maybe a Jewish reporter to report on the imam, the radical imams. Who has an Arab name? Who has a South Asian name, or who looks Muslim? Have them, because we don't want to be racist. We don't want to be Islamophobic. Salma, you want to cover this? Okay, great. Salma, go. You be the token Muslim who is calling out extremism in her own community. Great job. So these Muslim women just become part of the PSYOP.
This is Abul Bara, a popular preacher on TikTok from Germany's ultra-conservative Islamist community.
The ultra-conservative Islamist community of Germany. There's been a lot of demonization of Muslims in Germany recently. And, I think it's tied to a lot of the false flags that have been happening. They really are trying to demonize Muslims. And it's not a coincidence that Germany is one of the biggest supporters of Israel in the EU. I think those things two go hand in hand, being a big supporter of Israel and demonizing your local Muslim community.
After authorities foiled a suspected terror plot on a Taylor Swift concert, there has been renewed focus and concern about online extremism that targets German-speaking youth.
So there was a threat of a terror attack on Taylor Swift's concert or whatever. And of course, who's behind that? ISIS, right? It's ISIS. Who's behind ISIS, I wonder? Who really benefits from Muslims being demonized? Especially these days, in the past 10 months. Who really benefits? Who could it be?
Bara has denied any connection to ISIS or any other jihadi group. His accounts do not call for violence and remain active on social media.
So he's denounced terrorism, terror groups. He's disavowed any kind of terror group. He has no history. His channel, his material doesn't call for violence. It doesn't try to justify terrorism. All he's doing is saying halal and haram. This is halal and this is haram. Again, I haven't reviewed his channel, so I'm not necessarily endorsing everything that he says. I don't know like what perspective he's coming from, but just based on what this CNN reporter is saying, just on what she's saying, what's the problem here? Why is he considered an extremist? Why is he considered to be a radical or a potential radicalizer of the German youth?
Also has an audience on Instagram and YouTube where he has posted more than 2,000 videos.
Bara has this really casual, relatable style. He's always smiling in his videos. He addresses questions that an everyday teenager might want answered. But counterterrorism experts say it's that Q&A style that has drawn tens of thousands of people to his channels. And they worry that those who listen to Bara may become ripe for the picking by more extremist actors.
He does Q&As. That's like creating terror. That's an environment ripe for extremism. He has a very casual style. He smiles a lot. That's a red flag. That's really concerning. We need to bring in the counter extremism, the counter terror experts. Oh, wow, 2,000 videos and he's smiling in them. Oh, that's one step away from ISIS. Can you believe this? Like this is CNN. This is not some random person criticizing the imam. This is CNN.
I think what surprised me the most about Bara's reach is what one de-radicalization caseworker in Germany told me. He said that Bara's content is common among young people involved in his de-radicalization programs.
What makes him dangerous is that he is like a gateway drug. He lays the groundwork where other actors are picking his target audience up and leading them further into radicalization.
So he's leading to radicalization. Basically, this is how they criminalize all Muslims. Like you can't be an imam at all because you can completely disavow violence, disavow terror, and you can even say Islam means peace. We don't teach jihad. We don't teach about conquest in Islam. We don't teach about the hudud or sharia or khilafah. No. We're just looking at fiqh, like halal and haram, like what is halal to eat, how should you dress, hijab, modesty. And they will still say, oh, this is one step away from being a terrorist. This is one step. He's creating a environment that's ripe for extremism, an environment that's ripe for these radical tendencies. This is how you criminalize all of Islam. You criminalize all of Islamic preaching and these imams. That's the whole strategy of the war on terror. And it's still alive and well because since October 7th, the old playbook, they've opened it up and they are putting it on steroids. Why? Who's pushing that? Obviously Israel. Israel and their agents, their puppets, they're pushing it. So, and these liberals like CNN is supposed to be so liberal and so tolerant and accepting, and they are demonizing all of Muslims. He smiles. That's a red flag. He smiles. And they bring in the counter extremism professional. Yeah, this is exactly what we're looking at. We have to monitor this imam. We have to maybe surveil him and whoever goes to his lectures, whoever watches his TikToks. We need mass surveillance because those are people who are one step away from going to a Taylor Swift concert and stabbing them all up. So, it's shocking. Okay, now here are some TikToks which are interesting. You have this guy named Iron Man. Again, I don't know his whole repertoire. What does he advocate? But he had this viral TikTok. And because of this viral TikTok, he got banned from TikTok. Got kicked right off.
Normalizing women getting an education. Education is literally ruining our sisters. Most of them don't even know how to run a household.
Could you still be a housewife?
Women shouldn't get an education. Interesting. Who else has said that? I think that's a very profound point. Women should not be educated. Interesting. So there are all these reactions from feminists and simps spurging out like, he said women should not be educated. Just losing their minds, and his account gets banned. His account gets banned. So this is why I don't bother with TikTok, because like, I'm not even saying, I'm going way beyond what this guy is saying. And he gets banned, so what chance do I have? But so let's react to the reactions to this. And if you're a hardcore fan of MuslimSkeptic, you know all the arguments here, even before I play it. Just in the chat, what is the number one thing they're gonna say? Why should women get an education? Why? In the chat, please type it in. What's their top 2 or top 3 reasons? There you go. Doctors. If women don't get an education, how will your wife go to the doctor? You need female doctors. Okay, so you guys, that's one reason. What's the other reason? Yeah, female doctors. What else? Because we need to be free. Yeah, that's a good one. We need to be free. We have to be independent. Independence. What was the third one? What's the third? And being empowered and brave. Khadija was a CEO. Exactly. Okay, radiallahu anha. What else? What if the husband dies? Great job, Knight 77. What if my husband dies? Oh no. So yeah, so those are the top 3 reasons. We need female doctors. What if my husband dies? And women should be independent. Oh, also Muslim, Cyan. Seeking knowledge is an obligation. We all need to seek knowledge. Yeah, exactly. So when the Prophet ﷺ says that every Muslim should seek knowledge, that means go to college, obviously. That means go and get your degree in communications and sociology and psychology. That's what the Prophet ﷺ meant. So, yeah. What if I get divorced? What if my husband dies? Okay, so let's react. It's so predictable. Like, it's so predictable and very close-minded.
If your husband's dead?
Because that's what happened to me. Had I not invested in my education, had I not had experience in the workforce, had I not invested in business and real estate, I would have been cleaning a house that I couldn't afford to pay in anymore. But thank God I could mop. Thank God I could cook. This misogynistic rhetoric that you're spewing, first of all, it's a tired conversation. Take a nap. Second of all, it is so toxic, and it's quite frankly not even Islamic. We can't be following the same Islam. We can't be following the same Sunnah. The same Sunnah that says the Prophet ﷺ married a businesswoman. That means she got to business. That means she learned the trade. She got a what? Education in it. Okay.
Where did Khadija radiallahu anha get an education? Like, was there Mecca University, Mecca School of Business that Khadija went to? Where did she get an education from, I wonder? The feminists always say that, oh, Khadija, she's a businesswoman, she got educated, but what was her degree? What was the degree that she got? Did she get an MBA to know, like, how to trade, how to make money? Like, you need an MBA for that? So these are the low IQ arguments that we hear over and over again.
Okay. The same Prophet ﷺ that cooked and cleaned. You be doing
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam cooked and cleaned? Where's the narration that says that? What, I don't remember reading about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam cooking anything, especially when his wives are there cooking. There are many narrations, many hadith about his wives cooking for him, his wives cleaning for him. There's no narrations about his wives going to college and getting an education, quote unquote. There's literally not a single hadith about that. So are you inventing a new religion? Because this is not like, is this the Prophet Muhammad that you're talking about? Or is this some other prophet that we haven't heard of? You know, is this like some kind of rewrite, like a Disney rewrite for woke audiences, for modern audiences, what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? Because if you go to the actual books of hadith, there's no such narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam cooking. Especially his wives are there, so you're just making up a new religion. No shame.
Doubt it. Well, let's just ignore the fact that he's weaponizing Islam to push his podcast bro agenda. Forget that. Are you not living in the
podcast bro agenda? Yeah, that's the only thing that's motivating this critique of modern gender roles, or the lack of gender roles, the destruction of gender roles, the destruction of marriage, the destruction of family, the absolute depression that so many Muslims are suffering because they are at the point in history where they're the most empowered, they're the most educated, they have the most degrees, they have the highest average salary, but they also happen to be the most depressed. They also happen to be the most suicidal in history. They also happen to be using the most antidepressants in history, the women of today. Are those two things correlated? Maybe empowerment isn't all it's cut out to be. Maybe all that education and all those degrees are not really bringing more happiness to women. Not to mention the other harms that come from this women's empowerment, including the destruction of marriage, the destruction of family, the destruction of social values.
same economy I am? Do you know how much you have to make to be middle class? Do you know how much you have to make to even take vacations every year in this economy? Newsflash.
Take vacations every year. You know, that's your standard of living. You want to be middle class and you want to take vacations every year. So go into the workforce. Women, you gotta go work. You gotta be the boss, babe. Gotta make that cash. You can't just rely on your husband to make enough money so that you can be middle class and go on vacations. You also have to work yourself. And what if he dies? What if he dies? Like in my situation. The other thing is, do they not know about welfare? Like, don't you know about social services? Don't you know that there are so many services for women that men don't have any access to, by the way? The thing about social services and welfare is that it's mainly paid for by taxes. Taxes like state taxes, property taxes, for example. And who is mainly paying those taxes? It's men. Men are mainly paying those taxes, and the main beneficiaries of those taxes are women. So even if you're an independent woman and you're getting all of this assistance from the state through welfare or food stamps or Medicaid, for example, that money is mainly coming from men. So you're not really independent now, are you, as a woman? They skip that part. They don't mention that part.
Buddy, we're not going to school to be cute and fresh. We're going to school because we need to afford to exist in this economy. That if under any other circumstances or conditions something happened to our husband, we're doomed.
Why are you doomed? There's welfare. There's a social safety net. That's the problem, actually. Women can be independent. They can divorce their husbands and extract all of this wealth, be given child support for 18 years, alimony in some states where you're getting money from your husband just for being his ex-wife. And you also have a welfare state that is going to provide for you. So women are the most taken care of. All of these social services need to be deleted, actually, because when women don't have this fallback option, when there is no safety net, they have to stay married, number one. And if they do get divorced for some reason, or the husband dies for some reason, you immediately have to go find another husband. You either go back to your father's house or your uncle's house, or you go and find another husband. That's what we need. That's what we need. And this is the problem with a lot of Muslim men. Actually, I'll save it because there are more reactions. But these women, unfortunately, these Muslim women aren't seeing the whole economic picture. They're distorting it.
People are barely affording to live off 2 incomes, but somehow you think one is sufficient. And we need to just put on our skirt and get in order. Please. I really hope you're going to med school to be able to afford this life that you feel like your wife should live. Good for her. What a queen.
We need to stop.
Okay, so this is an incoherent rant. But this is the misinformation that so many Muslim sisters are operating under, and they don't recognize the harms of this education that they're pursuing. When you're pursuing the education, you are losing your value as a potential mate because you have to dedicate so many years to get that education. And then once you have it, you're going to feel like it's a waste unless you go into the professional world, unless you start working. That is going to take more of your time. Your age, you're going to get into your mid-20s. You're going to start getting closer to your 30s, and you're not married. As you get older, your value as a potential mate will decrease. Naturally, this is just something biological. So we've discussed it so many times, and I just don't want to rehash everything right now. But there are so many costs to you as a woman when you delay marriage. You delay marriage for the purpose of education. Whereas if you got married earlier, then you're going to be able to find a higher quality husband, a higher value husband who's going to take care of you, who's going to provide you with children. And then that husband also, if he passes away, then there are other people that you can marry. That's what we want. When we worry, and this is why I was telling another brother, actually, we were discussing this, you have all of these Muslim men who are complaining about, oh, I can't find a wife, or it's so difficult to get married. It's so difficult to find a Muslim sister willing to marry me. Do you know that what's causing that problem is women's education? That's what's causing it, because these Muslim women are busy getting educated. They can't sacrifice that for the sake of getting married. And when they do get educated and then they get married, if they get divorced, they have this fallback plan to go work and basically get married to their job and depend on their job, or depend on welfare, or depend on whatever else, rather than come and have to find another husband to take care of them. So if you're a man, a Muslim man, and you're complaining, oh, I can't get a wife, I can't find a wife, it's so difficult, are you also promoting women's education? Because that's the main reason, that's one of the biggest reasons that there are so few Muslim women available for marriage. And this is also contributing to zina of both Muslim men and Muslim women. You're delaying marriage, the temptation of zina is that much greater.
Normalizing women getting an education.
Okay, so it's too early for this, but this guy is...
So this is a gay Israeli. He has 2 cents to share on women, Muslim women getting educated as well.
Basically talking about how women should not be getting jobs or education, how they should be running a household and getting married to men and being sold off by their fathers. That is that is normal practice in Islam.
Getting sold off by your father. That's normal practice in Islam.
That is why Islam is dangerous to people's rights. Women in Islam's eyes...
That's the Israeli flag behind him.
You should not have an education. You should not be getting a job. You should be running the household. You should be cooking. You should be listening to the man of the house.
Yeah, exactly. Good job. Looks like you do know something about Islam.
This is the West. This is not the Middle.
This is the West. The soy shriek. This is the West. This is, yeah, just look at this shaitan.
East. I mean, unless you're in Israel, because you have tons of rights in Israel, but not in any other Middle Eastern countries. No.
You have tons of rights in Israel. So many rights. Oh, man. Soy shaitan. Soitan.
Do not listen to this guy. Women, go out, be a girl boss, do your own thing.
Yeah, and go be a girl boss. Go, find an Israeli boyfriend. Go and it's disgusting. Yeah, but understand that these feminist Muslims and the simps, like, your mentality is purely colonized. It's purely colonized. All of your talking points originate from people like this, or his ancestors, basically. These colonizers, these Western imperialists, they're the ones who originated these arguments, because they're the ones who have been pushing for women's education in the Muslim world. So just every time you hear about female doctors and what if my husband dies, just picture this soy face, like this Khabith Zionist face, Israeli face. You're the mouthpiece for this.
Become powerful attorneys, become powerful judges, keep getting those racks. Miss Khelai.
Man, they're just, even 30 seconds is too much.
Normalizing women getting an education. Education is literally ruining our sisters. Most of them don't even know how to run a house.
I actually want to have a serious conversation about this, because he's not the only one who believes this, and I've seen a lot of people believe the same concept. So let's talk about it.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, we're changing the minds, the hearts and minds. We're normalizing this idea that Muslim women shouldn't get an education. They should not be empowered. They should abide by their God-given gender roles that Islam prescribes: to be a mother, a wife, to be the head of the household, obedient to your husband, obedient to your father. Like, these are the gender roles that we are trying to revive. And this is the sunnah. This is called reviving the sunnah. And alhamdulillah, so keep commenting, keep pressing on this issue, because we're winning. Alhamdulillah, we're winning, and it's reached the far reaches of TikTok. And if you need arguments, if you need talking points, watch the channel, watch my debate that I had with another person, like a feminist, hijabi, and watch that debate on women's education. You'll be entertained, to say nothing of the actual information that you'll get from that debate. Watch that debate. Watch Khalid. My wife reacted to that debate. She brought her own talking points. So if you want from a women's perspective, look at Khalid's reaction to the women's education debate. And let's spread this dawah. Let's revive the sunnah.
A lot of guys don't realize that we don't live in a century where women are being taken care of by the men of the society. Like, nowadays, if a woman's being taken care of her husband, she's actually pretty lucky.
It's completely ignorant. Yeah, most women are still being taken care of by men, because, as I mentioned, even the independent women, they rely on a welfare system, or they rely on a system that is giving women positions because of affirmative action, or trying to increase gender diversity. So they are getting promoted and they're getting positions on the basis of these programs created by men, or these institutions created by men. So they are also being supported by men today, arguably even more so today than they were in the past. The only difference is that men in the past, for their support of women, they would get something in return, like a partner, a sexual partner, a obedient wife. They got something in return. But men today, they're paying those taxes. They're basically supporting the welfare state. They're supporting all these institutions with their blood, sweat, and tears, and they get nothing in return from these women. These women, instead, they're living their independent lives, committing zina with the chads, right? The top 10% of men. Because of sexual freedom, they can sleep around with whoever they want. And the 80% or the 90% of men who are paying into this system to support these women, they get nothing out of it. They get nothing. They just have to satisfy themselves, with nothing, or with online pornography. That's all that they get. So these simps, unfortunately, are just ignorant. They don't know the facts.
But when she gets divorced, she doesn't have a whole tribe, a whole community around them that's taking care of them like it used to be. So we want
Well, why not? Like, if that's not the situation, let's make it into the situation. If that's not the situation that we have today, then we need to go back 100 years or 1400 years. I thought we were Muslim. We're trying to actually live according to the way that Islam prescribes, according to the Quran and Sunnah, according to Revelation. That's what we want. So if the situation is not that, we want to return to that. That's what it means to follow the Sunnah. It's not like, oh, well, now the situation is different, so do whatever everyone else does. That's not the Muslim mentality.
Our sisters to live in the past when us as a society, that we don't live like that anymore. Being married to a wife that I want for her to get her education and for her to be able to make money in case I pass away is very important, actually. Look, I'm not a big...
Tell your wife, okay, first of all, try to provide for your wife. Try to create contingency plans. Like, if I die, this is what I do, like in my family. If I die, Allah can take me at any moment. At any moment, you know, right now on stream, I could get some kind of hemorrhaging, or I could get some kind of stroke, and I'll fall dead right in front of you, right on the stream. It could happen at any time. It's in the hands of Allah. Guess what? I'm going to try to create a financial situation that you'll be supported, that you'll have the ability to live. You know, I try to do that. And then if there isn't, well, okay, this is my family member here. This is my other family member, and they are responsible for taking care of you. They're responsible for helping and supporting you. And that those arrangements have already been made. So that's number 2. Number 3, guess what? Maybe you need to get married. You have to think, okay, I lost my husband. It's time for getting remarried. You know, maybe that's the option that you have to consider. So that's option number 3. And if that also doesn't fail, guess what? We live in a welfare state. We live in a modern state, and as a welfare state, you can also get a lot of support from the state. So those are 4 separate options. None of them require you to be educated. In fact, you did get educated because, as everyone knows, I graduated from Harvard. My wife graduated from Harvard 1 year after I did. She didn't get a job. She didn't have a job. She has no experience. She has no skills. Her degree is in anthropology. That's not exactly a vocational type of degree where she can get some kind of vocational job and be paid. So she got the education. It's not going to help. It's not going to help her. So this is the way that you, as a man, as a Muslim man, you have to be prepared. You have to, you know, and we have to educate our daughters, our wives on these realities. So that we don't rely on this dumb feminist narrative of, oh, you have to be a boss babe.
Fan of somebody, a guy or girl, that waits maybe 30, 40 years for them to get married. I do want people to get married as soon as they can, so that way they can build a family. But as a provider, as a man,
they can't get married as soon as they can if they're going to a 4-year college and then working to get some skills. Because again, you get the degree, that doesn't mean that you'll be able to get a job. You get a degree and they get married, and then your husband dies after 5 years or 10 years. That's going to not be a very strong resume. Okay, like you go to a job interview. I see that you got your degree in 2018. Okay, what have you been doing since 2018? Oh, I've just been at home with my husband and raising my children. Oh, okay, resume in the trash, interview over. Like that. That's the way it goes. So it's not enough to get the degree and the education. Then you have to go actually work. And then when you work, you know, then you don't have time to get married. This is why the average age of marriage in the West is 35, and it's going up every year. The average age for Muslims is also going up higher and higher. These are statistical trends. What's causing that? Women's empowerment is causing that.
And while you're working, what is she supposed to do? Like, even
raise the kids, cook, clean, make sure the house is in good order. Make the house into a home. Make the apartment into the home. That's what she should be doing. It's a huge responsibility. It's a very critical, crucial responsibility. But this poor guy can't even imagine, like, what would you even do The only thing that you can do is go and be a wage slave, is go and, make sure that you're in the office and make sure you get your manager the coffee just right. Like, that's all there is to life, is get that paycheck. Obviously, what else is there at home? And if you don't have kids, guess what? Sit back and read a book. Read a book, maybe write a book. Why not? Why not, think about life, do some dhikr, worship Allah. A lot of things that you can do in your free time. Luxury that Muslim women have that Muslim men don't have, because Muslim men are required to provide. Muslim women don't have that requirement, yet they've been brainwashed into thinking that that's what they have to do. And if they don't do it, they're literally going to die. There's literally nothing else than to be a wage slave. And there was a report that I tweeted, there was a woman. Here, let me see if I can pull up that tweet. There was a woman who, she went to the office at 7 a.m. and she died in her office chair, in her cubicle. And no one noticed that she was dead. No one noticed that she was dead. Her body sat at the desk for 4 days until someone found her. She was on an open floor of cubicles, and coworkers just assumed the smell was a plumbing problem. So it wasn't like she was closed off in an office. It was open. So people are walking by her cubicle and seeing her like slouched on the desk, on the table. And they're like, oh, I guess she's just taking a nap. She must be sleepy, sleepyhead. By the way, I'll need those reports by close of business, Sally. Make sure you get those to me. Check your email. I'm going to ping you. Let's circle back, by end of week, please. They're just talking to her. There's no response. Like, oh, I guess she's really, thinking deeply at her desk. Sorry, I'm morbid. Like, this is kind of my morbid humor, dark humor. But, it's sad. It is sad. Like, that's the way that you go. And imagine, like, no one noticed that she was missing. Like, there's no family members to call the place of work. This is Wells Fargo, okay? This is a bank, all right? This is a nice corporate job. Maybe she was like a C-level executive, and there's no family to call. Oh, have you seen Sally? She didn't come home. She's been gone for 2 days, 3 days. Did she come into work? No one even is there to ask about her. The only way that they knew that she was dead is because, oh, that's not the plumbing? That's the corpse literally 10 feet away from me that I didn't notice was a corpse for 4 days? I guess she didn't think of that. Actually, I didn't even know. Maybe this was a Muslim woman. Who knows? Maybe she was like Selma, or maybe she was like a, what's the word? Yasmin. She could have been Muslim at Wells Fargo, really climbing the corporate ladder, getting that nice position. Wells Fargo, where you got your own cubicle. Put in on your cubicle. You can decorate it, make it look real nice with flowers, and instead of like decorating your home and having a husband there at home and making your house cozy and beautiful, decorating it, you decorate your cubicle, right? And all of your social interactions, it's not with your husband and your children that you're raising, people that love you, people that care about you. It's these coworkers that don't even notice that you're dead. That's who you dedicated your life to, basically. They don't even notice that you're dead. Your corpse is there, and they can't even bother to check on you. Are you alive? Like, oh, it's 5 p.m. Gotta go home. Oh, I guess Selma or Yasmin at the desk, she's hard at work. Well, she napped throughout the whole day, so she's behind. She has to stay late, I guess. Well, bye. Like, how about these hijabis and these imams, instead of talking about, oh, what if your husband dies? Instead, tell these Muslim women that, what if you die at your cubicle like this woman at Wells Fargo? What if that's your, maybe that's what your education is going to get you? Are you going to include that in your calculation, your cost benefit analysis? No, you don't think of those possibilities. You only regurgitate the script that has been implanted because you're a bot, you're an NPC. You haven't really thought rationally about this whole question of women's education. You just repeat the script. But we're here to break the script.
Cooked you the best meal in the world and cleaned your house 20 times, it will take you 2 hours, 3 hours max. I think we need to look long term. So when you are actually even gifting your wife, gift her something long term like gold, or provide.
Do your own business. You know, if you're cooking and cleaning takes 2 hours and you have 8 hours or 9 hours left, do your own business. Maybe you want to have a side hustle. No problem. There's no problem with women making money, trading. Like, there's no problem with that. We're not opposed to that. We're opposed to this institution of going to college, spending 4 years, then going to work, being a corporate slave. That's what we're criticizing. There's no problem with working, making money. There's no problem with that. After you're a wife and a mother, you fulfill those responsibilities, then go and make money, do a side hustle, no problem.
For her businesses, that if you were to pass away, your wife and your children are not just begging for social help. I think to have a wife that could provide for herself, protect herself, and protect your children in case of even a divorce is better than for her to be stuck in hoping that the government or somebody has mercy on her to give her. I think men don't overthink this concept, and that's why it's very important in general to be married before you talk about a lot of these issues. I think single brothers and sisters unfortunately do not understand the reality of marriage. And once he, inshallah, himself will get married, I am telling you right now, his perspective of a lot of the things he used to say will change, because I was one of them.
Yeah. So before you were married, you were against women's education? I doubt that. I seriously doubt that. I've been married for 16 years, and the longer I've been married, the more opposed to women's education that I am. I was opposed to women's education way before I got married. And the first day of getting married, I was opposed to women's education. And now, 16 years later, I'm even more opposed to women's education. So,
normalizing women getting an education.
Every now and then, I'll see a post of this.
Another simp.
Ilk, and it reeks of insecurity. Is your masculinity so fragile and so shallow that the concept of an educated woman threatens your feeling of dominance? Listen, I agree that women today aren't primed to be housewives as they were 100, 200 years ago. And that's precisely why, because we're not living 100 to 200 years ago.
Yeah, the same stupid argument. Like, we're not living 100 and 200 years or 200 years ago. Your point? I thought we're Muslim. I thought we cared about living according to the Sunnah. The Sunnah is based on 1400 years ago. So this is the progressivism. It's just so ingrained, this idea that society continuously progresses and things get better in terms of quality of life and norms and values. Things are constantly improving. It's so entrenched, and you have these Muslims they have these TikToks, and I'm a Muslim and I'm commenting on whatever, but it's not actually Islam that is the grounding of their understanding of the world. It's progressivism.
You men who are running this take of women are too educated nowadays, they should focus on being housewives. You are living in a fantasy world, or you are living in your head during the heyday of the Islamic Empire.
Oh, God forbid that we want the heyday of the Islamic Empire to return. God forbid. You're living in a fantasy. Obviously, we can't live in those amazing times in the golden era of Islam. We can't have that. We have to live in the depressing dystopia of the present modern world.
Let's take a page from Kantian deontology and say that this rule that you want, that women should focus less on education and being housewives, was universally applied. It's you same men who say Oh, I can't have my wife be looked at by a male doctor, by a male dentist. I want a woman dentist. But you don't want women to be educated. Do you not see?
I don't know. I'm fine with non-Muslim women getting educated. So we live in these Western societies. There's plenty of non-Muslim female doctors. Problem solved. Oops, problem solved. That was simple. That was simple. But then the Sims say, no. But what about an ideal Islamic society that you want? Right? Because he's invoking Kantian deontology. He's invoking the categorical imperative. So imagine the ideal and imagine this rule applied. Okay, if we're talking about the ideal Islamic nation, that's different. Okay, I thought you were talking about now, the present, not 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Okay, in the present, we have female doctors, non-Muslim female doctors. So my daughter, my Muslim sisters, they don't have to go become doctors. No. What about the ideal? What about the ideal? You have to have female doctors. Okay, if we're talking about ideals, then sure, we can identify, the 1%, the top 1% of Muslim girls who are talented in science, and you fast track their medical education while they're still in their teens so that you can make sure that they get married by the time that they're 17 and have a medical education. So then you get the medical doctors, the female medical doctors, and you don't have to make every single girl go and pursue an education. Their problem solved. How many medical doctors do you need to serve all of the females in society? What's the ratio of female doctor to females? 1 to 10,000, 1 to 1,000. So we don't need to educate all of our girls. We only need to educate 1% or 0.1% of girls. Okay, we can do that in our ideal Islamic society. Problem solved. Problem solved. Education is not needed.
See the contradiction in that. Furthermore, let's say you get your wish and you marry a woman who has absolutely no experience with the outside world, with being in the workforce, with having a job. She is just fully primed to be a housewife from the moment that she leaves mandatory education.
Sounds good to me. That sounds great.
And then you die. What does she do? Oh, well, then you'd say Islamically, she should be looked after by her family, by her father, by her uncles, by her tribe. The key word...
Yeah, that sounds right. She gets to be looked after. Wonderful. What's the problem?
There is should. It's not always the case. We aren't living in the heyday of the Islamic empires where tribes and families were so close-knit that they would look after you. It's not always the case. We don't live in a...
Okay, yeah, it's not always the case. Okay, yeah. You should, as a woman getting an education, you should be able to have a nice, fulfilling career at Wells Fargo and climbing the corporate ladder, and you should be loved and you should be able to live a normal life. Oh, but you died. You keeled over at your cubicle and no one noticed for 4 days. So when they want to criticize the Islamic ideal of gender roles, you have to think of like the worst case scenario, and make like the low IQ point that, well, things could go wrong. Yeah, no duh. Of course, things can go wrong in any scenario, but they never think of the worst case possibility with their ideal model, which is a pure Western, determined, institutionalized model of women's advancement and education and career, etc.
Communal society anymore. We're very individualistic. A woman today needs to be able to stand on her own 2 feet if she doesn't have a financial backup. Like, it genuinely grinds my gears when we pretend like women have not been educated throughout the history of Islam and it hasn't been encouraged.
Yeah, it hasn't been encouraged. Where's the encouragement? I don't see that. There aren't these business schools in the Muslim world that Muslim women are encouraged to go and get degrees from. There were no liberal arts colleges in the Muslim world that Muslim women were encouraged to get degrees from in the Islamic history. What are you talking about?
I guess we'll just pretend that Rufayda al-Islamiyya, the woman who was a surgeon, who was a nurse during the Battle of Khandaq, the one who nursed the wounds of Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh.
So nursing wounds makes you a surgeon? I don't know what he's referring to, but I don't know what that reference is. But a surgeon? So did she go to like 8 years of college and medical school and then do her residency to become a surgeon so she could nurse the wounds at the Battle of Khandaq? Interesting. I'm not aware of this seerah.
He was struck. I guess we'd pretend that she didn't exist and she wasn't educated. I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't require you to have a medical degree to nurse wounds. Doesn't require that.
I should pretend like Khadija radiallahu anha, who after her 2 previous husbands died and she inherited their businesses, didn't run the business and had business acumen. Yes, she didn't do the trading by herself, but she had to pick who did the trading. I guess we'll pretend that
she relied on her MBA. You know, she went to Harvard Business School and was able to network for 3 years with all the top executives from all kinds of verticals and really rubbed shoulders with some of the most well-connected professionals and executives. And that's how she got that business acumen, clearly.
Lubna of Cordoba, one of the most gifted mathematicians in Islamic history, who taught the children of the Khalifa mathematics, didn't exist. Let's just erase the existence of Fatima al-Samarqandi, Fatima al-Fudayliya, Fakhr al-Nisa Shuhada. Let's just erase all of their existences as if they weren't major contributors towards hadith science. Let's just completely erase that. Just say it.
It's just projecting like this Western model of education and women's empowerment onto these women that they were all living with their fathers and they weren't actually sent to be educated. The only education that they got was what they overheard or what they heard from their fathers or their husbands. And that's why they're the kind of the exceptions that prove the rule. The vast majority of women weren't going to any institutions of education because those institutions didn't exist. They just didn't exist. And when you look at the madrasas, those were dominated by men. There weren't female madrasas. Any kind of female education for Islamic education was very minimal for women. Just the fard ain, you know, praying, tahara, purification, basic fard ain knowledge, obligatory knowledge. You don't, that's why when you look at Islamic history, all of the major scholars and even minor scholars are men. That's a historical fact. And that's the number one thing that feminists criticize about Islam. That's the number one thing that these feminists criticize about the Islamic tradition. They say that, well, you're mentioning figures like Imam Ahmad, Imam al-Shafi, Imam Malik, Imam Ghazali, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim. You're mentioning Fakhruddin al-Razi. You're mentioning all of these ulama. They're all men. Where are the women? Where are the women? There are just very marginal characters, marginal figures, and they were the exception that proved the rule. These female transmitters of hadith, for example. They're marginal, and the way that they got their education was just through their fathers. So whenever these feminists and simps bring up these examples, they actually are proving the point. If you're honestly presenting the history, then you prove our point, and you undermine your point.
As it is. You are afraid of a woman not being financially dependent on you because in today's age, with security, modern policing, housing, the government, you don't bring anything else to the table.
Actually, women want to be financially dependent. They want their man to take care of the costs. You don't see any women, the ones who go and are boss babes and are working and getting that salary, they don't spend on their husbands. They don't spend on their children. That money they keep in their own pockets, in their own bank accounts. They give it to their families. They don't give it to their husbands. They expect the husband to pay for everything. And if the husband says, no, I'll share paying the rent half and half with you, even if the woman agrees, she doesn't like it. She's actually disappointed in that subconsciously, and she respects him less as a man. That's a women's preference. That's how women's psychology works. And unfortunately, some of these simps just don't understand. They don't understand that that's the way that the female psychology works. Her attraction to you depends on her dependence on you. This is critical. So you see so many horror stories of men who encourage their wives to go work and get educated and make money, and then their wives fall out of love with them and divorce them. And they're like, oh no, what happened? My wife, I was so supportive. I supported her dreams. I supported her wishes. I told her, you can do it, honey. Go and get that degree. Go and get that PhD. You're amazing. I encouraged all of that. And now she doesn't love me. Instead, she fell in love with her manager at her job or her coworker, Chad. How could this happen to me? I thought she was a good Muslimah. That's why I didn't say anything when she got her eyeliner on and she got her lipstick on. She put on her lipstick and wore her high heels and her pantsuit and went to the workplace for 8 hours to sit with Chad. How could this happen? Oh, all of the imams said that we have to support our wives no matter what. Now she fell in love with Chad and I'm all alone and I have to pay child support. $3,000 a month. She took my house and my car. Oh, and now when I go to the imam to help me, the imam says, you probably abused her. You probably said something to abuse her and I don't know anymore. Maybe I did. Maybe I did abuse her. She wanted to go on that vacation to Hawaii and I didn't pay for first class. I guess that was abuse. Yeah, this is how many Muslim men are living their lives, at least in America. You can laugh, but this is the truth. This is the reality. And these are the people on social media. I mean, these are just random TikTok channels, but the same sentiments, the same attitude is preached on the mimbar at the masajid. That's the scary thing. All right, and here's an example. So here's a TikTok. POV, point of view, my wife after an argument.
People would die to be married to your wife, and you're still alive. May Allah grant us ease. Do you understand what I mean? People would say, how lucky is this guy? Wow. The sisters would say, this guy's got a really good wife. And you know what? We can't see that. We're blinded because there's some...
Yeah, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. This is exactly the dynamic. You get in an argument with your wife, she busts out the Mufti Menk. She busts out the Mufti Menk and this like simp khutbah that, oh, you're so lucky to have your wife. You're so lucky. You know, you should be on your hands and knees like a dog. Kiss her feet because you're worthless. You're scum between her toes. You know, that's what all these khutbahs have become. This is pretty much 90% or 95% of their dawah, of these compassionate imams, is just sucking up to women. It's just sucking up and saying, oh, women are so amazing. If you're married to a woman, you're the luckiest man alive. How can you ever say anything against her? This is cancer. This is really, like, you talk about toxic. Let's, use that word. This is like the most toxic poison of the Muslim marriage, because they can pull out the religious card. They can say, actually, if you don't do everything that I want, then you are opposing Islam. And how do I know that? Mufti Menk said it. Omar Suleiman said it. Yasser Qadi said it. All of these compassionate imams are constantly saying this. So just, go back to sleep. See, and that's the irony. Like, she is bringing Mufti Menk literally on her chest. No hijab, by the way. No hijab, in makeup, and there's someone operating the camera, and she's making this TikTok. But she has no shame. Like, that's how can I explain this? Like, the people of Allah and the awliya and the salihin, when you think about them or you hear about their name or you hear their name, you're just reminded of Allah and you become ashamed. Why? Because of your sins. Like just hearing their name, let alone being in their presence, like you're just ashamed because that person just reminds you of Allah. That person reminds you of the deen, and you're just, those are beautiful people. Those are beautiful models that is there people like that in your life? If you don't have someone in your life like that, then you need to find it. You just see them or you hear about them, you hear their name, and then the taqwa goes up. Your iman, like your feeling of iman goes up. You remember Allah. You become more modest. You become ashamed. You have that humility. They have that kind of profound effect. Why? Because of their piety, because of their taqwa. That taqwa rubs off, right? Just like the hadith mentions about like a pious friend. It's like perfume, like a perfume seller, that even having a friend who sells perfume, then some of that perfume is going to get on you as well. But, you know, you have people who are openly violating Islam. Sorry. They're holding up Mufti Menk and, you know, where's the taqwa? Where's the fear of Allah? Like, where's the modesty? Where is any of that? Instead, you're using it to promote simphood. Because this is his wife, posting herself, no problem. He just goes back to sleep.
Sin happening.
Okay, so this is something that was posted, I believe, on Reddit, and this is a horror story. So listen to this. I'm seeking advice on a difficult situation. Context: my wife and I have been married for several years and we have children together. For most of our marriage, I've been the sole provider, covering nearly all our expenses, from daycare, rent, and car payments to groceries and vacations. My wife has worked part-time on and off and started a side business, but it brings in very modest income, less than $12,000 a year. She contributes a little toward her personal expenses like nails and facials, but I still pay for her gym memberships, $400 a month, massages every other week, and even her girls' trips. So imagine this, like $400 a month for gym. And is this like a women's only gym, or is this like a male-female gym where the women are dressed inappropriately and bending over in front of strange men? Nails and facial, so she's getting professional manicures. And massages every other week, so twice a month. Those are pricey. And girls' trips. So she's going on vacation with him and the family, but also her own side vacations with the girls. So despite this, I still share the load of household responsibilities. Cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids, and managing yard work and car maintenance. So he shares a load. Like, that sounds like more than 50%. Even if he was sharing 50%, that would be sad. But he's also doing yard work and car maintenance. I don't think she's doing any yard work. I don't think, you know, when you get a manicure and your nails are all nice, you can't really get a shovel or a rake and a broom and start mowing the lawn, pulling weeds with your manicure. You don't want to ruin those nails that you get done every week or whatever. So he's doing more than 50%. He's got to be making over 100K, like 100,000 a year, probably close to $200,000 a year. Like vacations, these are all this is like a very upper class lifestyle, very upper class, or at least like upper middle class. So he's making a lot of money. So that's the context. Keep the context in mind. Now, present day, recently my wife completed a graduate program and is now working full-time. Wow, mashallah, she got educated. Graduate degree. Oh, that's exactly what the sunnah is. That's what the Prophet ﷺ wants, for your wife to get a graduate degree. Of course, just like, Khadija, So she's now working full time, earning a good income, nearly matching mine. However, she still refuses to help with household expenses or reduce her spending. So where is all that money going? So she's probably making six figures as well. It's going straight into her pocket. She's not even going to bother paying for anything else. So let's see. She insists that as the man in Islam, it's my duty to cover everything. She won't pay for her own personal expenses, let alone contribute to household costs like groceries or cleaning services. She even refuses to cover her tollway fees, which cost us about $30 a week. She says she will only pay her student loans. Oh, that's Islamic too, right? She went and got her graduate degree by taking loans, riba loans. Yeah, that's Islamic too, of course. She's hyper focused on that, and that until the student loans are paid off, she will not contribute a cent or change her spending habits. Is this normal? Adam is saying she's saving it for a rainy day when the husband dies. Yeah, she's smart. When this simp kicks the bucket, I want to continue taking vacations and girl trips. So gotta spend that dough. Gotta save it. My money is my money. Your money is my money. She really has a Islamic understanding. What's your problem? What's your problem, bro? Are you insecure? Are you insecure about your masculinity? That's fragile masculinity. I think you need to listen to Mufti Menk. You haven't been paying attention to the lectures, brother. So look at this poor guy. He's describing this like there's nothing funny about this. He's just like slightly concerned. Like, is this normal, guys? It's like looking around. Is this normal? Is this normal, guys? Is this how normal wives treat you? This is how I'm getting treated. Is this normal? Please, someone help me. Oh, subhanallah. Okay, so here's the rest. Every time I bring up the need for her to pitch in, hold on, let me put this. Every time I bring up the need for her to pitch in or suggest we cut back on luxuries like her gym membership or dining out, it leads to heated arguments. She accuses me of being greedy, cheap, and taking her money. The worst part is she started calling me hurtful names like loser and compares me to her friends' husbands who she claims pay for 100% of everything. Wow. So look at everything that's wrong. So he's greedy and cheap. He's not telling her to pay for everything. He's just telling her to chip in. He's like, you're a loser. See, this is what I'm telling you. This is the female psychology. Even if she does contribute, she's at least honest. She openly says that you're a loser. You expect me to pay for everything? I'm going and working 40 hours a week and bringing in six figures, and you want me to pitch in? You're a loser. Even if they don't say that, that's how they feel. And she calls me hurtful names and compares me to her friend's husband. So that's the thing about these Muslim women. Some of them, their eyes are always roaming. Why? Because a lot of these Muslims, unfortunately in the West, they do all these mixed gatherings. They have all of these social mixed gatherings with men and women where you and your wife are sitting with other couples. You go on these double dates or triple dates and it's all mixed together. Everyone is talking and laughing and chatting and socializing. And so she knows, oh, what are they doing for their wives? And why aren't you doing the same for me? This is another wisdom of gender separation. Now, I understand the roles of a man and what he must provide for his wife financially. Yeah, you know You know your role, clearly. It means pay for everything, do the car maintenance, the yard work, and the household chores. Make sure you cook and clean, because she's working 40 hours a week. She can't cook and clean. You have to do that. That's the role of the man, didn't you know? I feel like I'm doing that and way more. So much more that our savings are completely wiped out, and every month we're spending more than I earn. This guy is being drained. And by the way, there are these loans that are hanging over their heads. And I bet you that the loans, like he's a co-signer on those loans because she didn't have any income when she pursued that graduate degree. So those student loans, he's on the hook for them as well. I'm overwhelmed, constantly stressed, and haven't been able to save or spend anything on myself for years. After typing all this out, I'm starting to feel like this marriage might be beyond saving. Is this how finances in Islam are supposed to be? I really need advice on how to handle this situation. So look at this. And you might think, oh, this is a fake story. This is not real. This is made up. Trust me, it is real. If this is not a real scenario, there are thousands of other men exactly in this situation. It is real. And all these standards about what Islam says, and his wife telling him that, oh, you have to do this, you have to provide that, you have to support my education, you have to do these household chores, I don't have to do anything. Guess where she's getting that from? She's getting it from the compassionate imams. She's getting it from the mufti minks. That's where she's getting it from. So that's the thing, like these simps are gonna learn sooner or later. Like these simps, all of them will learn a very difficult lesson. They're just gonna learn it sooner, or they're gonna learn it later. It's not a joke when we say we're opposed to women's education. It's not a joke. When we say that we want traditional gender roles and we want the Sunnah, we want Islam, it's to prevent this horror story, this nightmare, this disaster. This guy's life is ruined. This guy's life is ruined. And unfortunately, he has a hand to play in that ruin because he was the one who didn't put his foot down. He's the one who didn't teach her what Islam actually says. He's the one who took out those loans, or allowed her to take out loans to get a graduate degree. He shares a lot of the blame. So don't be this guy. Don't be this guy. I don't know what other, how I can scare you straight. If this doesn't scare you straight, I don't know what will. Unfunny says, I don't know if I should even feel bad. Yeah, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad because as far as I'm concerned, I've been preaching this message for a decade. I've been called every name in the book. I've been canceled. I've been banned from giving khutbahs in my own city. I've been banned from speaking at masajid in my own city. I'm in a big city. I've been, smeared. The Dawah Mafia has come after me. So the community, it's your fault if you keep promoting these people. You keep putting them on a pedestal. You keep giving them all this money, millions of dollars, for them to preach a message that is going to destroy your marriage and destroy your family and create this nightmare. So a part of the responsibility is on you. It's on this Muslim community in the West. Okay, so let's wrap up the episode by looking at some super chats. Here's a good one. Muhammad says, Daniel, you're the based uncle in the family that brings up conspiracy theories at dinner tables. I can live with that. I've been called worse than the uncle, the crazy uncle. Appreciate your super chat, Brother Muhammad. saying you're doing a great job for the ummah. Let's all do a great job for the ummah by opposing women's education. Let's see. I know the sheikh from Germany, same aqidah and manhaj as you, and yes, he smiles a lot. Do you know Pierre Vogel, also from Germany? No, I don't know. Halal Zoomer, appreciate you, brother. Is the Taliban based for banning women's education? Of course. Halal Zoomer says, we need more clippers, clip content and post on Twitter. Yeah, so follow Halal Zoomer on Twitter. What he does is a great service. He takes content on MuslimSkeptic channel. He finds clips, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and he clips it and he posts it on Twitter. You can create your own channel. You can create even, web page, TikTok, Instagram, whatever you want. Post clips, no problem. I have no problem. You can use the clips however you want. Just don't distort the message. And that's a great service. So if you can't make your own dawah channel, you can still help out by clipping the content that we have. Hours and hours of content. Whatever you find interesting, post it on Twitter, post it on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. Education for women is very important, but not this kind of education that the West provides. You can educate women at a young age and get her married. Yeah, if you mean education like reading the Quran, it's very important. I agree. Knowing halal and haram, to the fard ayn knowledge is very important. I agree. Megapolis player, appreciate your generous super chat, brother. Jazakallah khair. Do I give lectures in Houston? Nope. Why? Because I've been banned. They can't have a misogynist like me coming and lecturing and red pilling their precious Houston Muslims. Because of you, my daughter will never see a university college door. May Allah reward you. Wa iyyakum. That's very positive to hear, brother. Heartwarming. And see, this brother, Abdul Wahab, he actually loves his daughter. He actually wants to protect his daughter. He wants to do what's best for his daughter. He wants when this brother thinks about his daughter, he's thinking about the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is thinking about the Sahabiyat. And what did the Sahabiyat do, the female companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? They cooked, they cleaned, they had children, they raised children, they were modest, they concealed themselves with perfect modesty, they were obedient to their husbands. And what did Allah promise those women? Enter Jannah through any gate of Jannah that you wish. That is the reward that Allah has promised, and the Prophet ﷺ has promised these women and these wives. That is what our brother Abdul Wahab wants for his daughter. What these simps want for their daughters is that Wells Fargo boss babe. That's what they want for their daughters. So tell me, who actually cares for his daughter, Abdul Wahab or these simps? And not only is Abdul Wahab protecting his daughter and giving her the best opportunity for not only a happy life, but also a happy akhirah, he is also contributing to the ummah. He is also contributing to the ummah, marriage in the ummah, the values of family in the ummah, making sure that the ummah is strong with happy marriages, strong families, with the mother, the wife as the nurturer of her family, the caretaker of her family and her children, raising them, raising the ulama, the next generation of ulama, the next generation of mujahideen, the next generation of salihin. That's what she's doing. That's what his daughter, inshallah, is doing. So please raise your hands in dua for this brother Abdul Wahhab's daughter. May Allah protect her and protect her father and her family. May Allah give her the best spouse, the most righteous spouse who will take care of her in this dunya. And may she be allowed to enter Jannah through any gate of Jannah that she chooses amongst the Salihin in Jannatil Firdaus. That's what we make dua for the daughter of Abdul Wahhab and the daughter of all the good Muslims who are eager to abide by the Sunnah and to revive the Sunnah. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. And with that, we close the episode 21. Inshallah, you enjoyed it. Again, make sure to subscribe to the newsletter. It's very important. You can also subscribe to the channel. You can subscribe to our Rumble channel. No problem with that. Yeah, and that's all we have for you today. Let's see. Just saw a couple of super chats last minute. Evote says the problem is not only in the West, even in Muslim countries we have that. It's disastrous with the new laws. The divorce are in the same rate in the West. Yeah, unfortunately, this idea of educating your daughters has reached the Muslim world and is wreaking havoc. My wife wants to go to an all-female school alone while I'm in America. She says it's close to her home. What do you think? What's the point? Not necessary. Save yourself the headache. Why does she need it? Okay. So, Jazakumullah khairan, everyone. Appreciate everyone's super chat and appreciate everyone watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll have another episode coming very soon. Hit the notification bell so you know when we're going to live next, and I'll catch you on the next one, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.